Welcome back to the Name Redacted podcast, America's most beloved podcast, the most downloaded Red Sox podcast in the world. And the Red Sox are cooking at the winter meetings, baby. They're linked to like every player that Yamamoto, in some articles, not all of them, but some of them.
John Morosi tweets. That's what we got.
John Morosi said maybe Ohtani, nothing on him. Soto.
All right. No.
Well, hold on. He's not linked to Soto? The Red Sox not linked to Soto right now?
I don't think so.
They're
I
not
don't think
linked
that's what
to
I'm hearing.
Soto, but that's okay because he's a one-year rental. We don't want him anyway. We don't want one-year rentals. We want long-term commitment, baby. We're out there. We don't belong to the streets anymore. We want long-term commitment, T-Dog.
Or Martin Maldonado.
Put a ring on it, T-Dog. That's what we want, Maldonado. Yeah. I saw that. I saw that Rafael Devers Instagram post that Craig Breslow said was absolutely meaningless. Did you already see it? Did you already see that Breslow said that was basically nothing? Like, we're not looking to add catching depth?
I thought he danced around it and kind of just treated it like, we're looking at all avenues kind of thing.
Tom Caron, 12 minutes ago, said, update to this. I asked Craig Breslow whether he was looking to add more catching depth. Well, he wouldn't rule anything out. He said that was not a priority at this point.
Okay.
So I don't even know if Maldonado is getting signed. We can't even sign 164 hitting catchers that are 38 years old. We're just, hey, listen, I'm not down. I'm not down on the Sox right now, but if one more fucking person texts me asking me for fucking rumors, like I wouldn't just tweet them. Like,
have I been bothering you?
No one's bothering me. It's just it's not that it's a bother. It's that when someone asks you if you've heard anything, you want to be able to be like, yeah, but you can't tell anyone. But like, I heard that, and like, you want to be able to do that. But every time that like I have, I don't know, let's just call it a dozen friends in my real personal life that love the Red Sox, that will like they don't have any skin in the game. Like they're just fans. Like they don't have blogs or podcasts. Like they're not active on social media really. They just want to know. And I'll get these text messages and be like, what are you hearing? Do you know how soul crushing it is to be like nothing? Like I'm it's so depressing. It's like it's you know what it feels like? If and you can relate to this, T-Dog. You're in a very serious relationship. It would be like if Martha ran away from home and then people are like, hey, has she come home yet? And you have to say no. You know what I'm saying, Youk?
Yeah, that happens to me all the time.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's
you got people texting you being like, hey, Youk, you heard anything? And you have to be like, no, I've literally heard nothing. Like, how are you fielding those text messages? Because I know that you're probably getting them.
I guess this is about the Red Sox and not other things. I'm a dad of 3 kids, so I'm getting all kinds of text messages about things I have no idea about. And people, yes, it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the life of a dad with 3 kids, though.
Right?
No, people are definitely asking what's going on. I always tell them, like, listen, I play with Breslow. I know Breslow, but why would Breslow call me and tell me what the heck's going on? He is so busy in his own mind, just getting hired to be the baseball operations, the head of baseball operations of the Boston Red Sox. He has enough stress on his plate. So I don't know anything.
He does. And you know what? This is a great place to start. Kevin Youkilis, by the way, Boston Red Sox.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, you guys have this is Tyler Milliken.
Oh,
this is
Tyler,
Jake.
Yeah.
Jake's my producer here. Big Red Sox fan.
I've met Jake.
You know what? You've met Jake.
Jake and I met on the
You've
field.
met Jake.
Tyler's gonna make
yes. Yes, you've met Jake. Good memory. So before we get into anything, because there's plenty of topics that we have to discuss, we're going to get into your broadcasting stuff. We haven't even hit Alex Verdugo yet. Like, we're going to talk about that current event stuff. I want to pick your brain on Craig Breslow, but I want to start right here because my man right here, T-Dog, Tyler Milliken, he says the 2007 World Series out of the 4 championships ranks numero uno. Is there anything that you could throw behind his argument so that he doesn't sound as stupid as he does when he does say that it's number one?
Oh, wow. I mean, everything's subjective, right? Of course.
Yeah.
That's what you say when someone has an awful opinion.
Yeah.
No, it really is subjective because for me personally, 04 was a big deal, but 07 was a bigger deal for me because I had the opportunity to play. You know, I got in the playoffs out in Anaheim, but for me, like that ALCS coming back against the Indians, and I'm allowed to say Indians, right?
I think so. Yeah. It was of the time. It was of the time.
Yeah. This is the hardest one I have on broadcast. So if I reference before the Guardians' time, I feel like I have to say Indians because it said on the uniform. So
right.
Yeah, so it was a very memorable. It wasn't down 3-0, but I mean we were facing CC Sabathia game 5 and took down Sabathia in Cleveland. And I'll tell you, I mean, 07 was great. I mean, for me, it was probably the most personable of the two that I got to win. I was a rookie in 04, and I mean, that was wild. And I was learning the whole time. I was learning a lot. I mean, I played in the Cape Cod, so I learned a lot about Boston, but I was learning the whole way through of the chaos of Boston Red Sox fandom, the curse and all that stuff. And I always joked around, I'm like, curse? What the heck you guys talking about? I won in 1 year. I was like, I think 1 year in the major leagues and we won this thing. Yeah. So, but no, I can understand that argument. I think that team was unbelievable in a lot of ways.
It's a great team,
it was a unique team.
Listen, no one's going to sit here and say that was not a great team. It was a great team. It was a great team. But to rank it first, would you rank it first? You were on 2 of them. You witnessed another 2. Where would you rank 07 as someone who was a major player in one of the reasons why the Red Sox won the World Series in 2007?
Well, individually, I'll say 07.
Okay, all right.
That's beautiful.
But as a Red
Someone
Sox
needed to say
base, as a Red Sox fan base, I'm guessing 04 is always going to be number 1 just because it was the breaking of 80 plus years of drought. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want to throw my guy Tyler here a bone because I knew that there's a very short list of people that could make the argument respectfully for 07 maybe being number 1, and you're on that list. So I'm glad that we got that out of the way. But we did.
Petey would be a good one. Petey would be a really good one because he wasn't on the 04 team,
but he was on the 13 team.
Yeah, so
he was in the dugout for 18. I bet. You want me to ask him right now? I'm gonna ask him right now.
Oh, we got a text. Oh, here we go.
I'm gonna ask him right now. What do you think he's gonna say?
Well, he's not gonna say 04 because he wasn't on it, I'm guessing.
What World Series you would rank as number 1?
You know what the best part of your text right now is? You have to say it out loud as you're typing it.
Yeah, well, I want to know. I want people to know how I'm phrasing it because, like, we need to discuss this. How should I phrase this? Like, should I say it yours personally?
Yeah.
Like, where would? Okay. Yeah. We want to see what World Series you would rank as your number 1. Okay. All right, sent. We'll see what he says.
Youk, from your perspective, right? Like, I was 9 years old. I was not old enough to understand 2004. I was a small child. So that was my first full year watching the Red Sox. Youk, that year, the first things I saw, you're the first inside the park homer I ever saw. A hitting streak that went as long as yours did. That was the first time I had seen anything like that. There were a lot of firsts for me watching Dustin Pedroia go win Rookie of the Year. Jacoby Ellsbury come out. I was falling in love with David and Manny as a young kid. Many people got to fall in love way before that, but that was my time. Nothing's going to beat that first love. And that's why I always go back to it.
Everyone's forgetting. That was also the first Taco Bell steal in the World Series for free tacos.
Yeah, to Kobe Bellsbury.
There you go.
Yep,
so maybe that's why. Somebody loves Taco Bell. They're going to say that was the favorite one.
He's calling you fat. He's calling you fat, Tyler.
No, he's not. He's just saying I enjoy tacos. I'd never take it that way.
It's okay. A fat guy can call another fat guy fat. That's like
all right. Now you're owning it. Now you are saying you called me fat.
I'm fat. I don't care.
All right, we're fat.
I don't know. I can't tell. Take off the shirt. Let's go.
No, I'm a skinny guy.
Yeah, take him off. Pop the tops. Dustin Pedroia has answered. What do you think he said?
What do I think he said?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's tough. 13 might be a big one for him because the Boston's strong, but 07 was his first. So,
and he had a front row seat for 18. Like he played games in 18.
Yeah,
not in the postseason, but
definitely not saying 18. Even though that team they had the most wins, right? I'm going to say 07.
Ever. He said, "I love all my kids." That's what he said.
That's it.
That's what he said.
A man whose favorite quote is clowning on Jeff Francis in the 2007 World Series. If you're going to tell me that is not his favorite, I won't accept it. I'm sorry.
He went Switzerland. He went Switzerland.
Yeah, he was very diplomatic about this one. Yeah. Very diplomatic answer from Dustin.
He might be running for office in 2024 with that answer.
I would vote for him. I don't know what his policies would be, but I feel like we would align on a lot of issues.
Who knows? I think Petey stays far away from that stuff. I don't think Petey's ever looked. I don't think Petey's ever watched the news other than MLB Network.
No. He certainly has not. So people tuning in now, you're probably looking for the reaction to the Alex Verdugo trade, which I would love to give to you right now. It's me. It's Tyler. Jake's here. Need to get Jake's thoughts. Kevin Youkilis has joined us here. Nesson, former Red Sox. We're not going to mention the other teams he played for because they may hold a place in his heart, but they don't in mine. They don't in mine, Kevin. And I don't know did you take offense to that? If I don't want to acknowledge the other teams you played for?
No, it doesn't matter to me. Listen, I got to play baseball for a living. It didn't matter anyway. I mean, when you get paid to go out there and you get to play baseball for your job, it's pretty special. So any team you get to play for, I know fandom is a different thing. But
I don't know if you saw this today, Kevin.
Uh-oh.
Well, I want to make sure that I cite it correcely.
And you said Kevin, too. You call me Kevin.
Yeah. thespun.com. I think it's like a spinoff of Sports Illustrated. So they put out an article today about Shohei Ohtani. And a part of it says, unfortunately, that might not be good news for the Dodgers. Former MLB pitcher Jared Carrabis pointed out the news goes against Ohtani's wishes. So I am cited as former MLB pitcher Jared Carrabis by Sports Illustrated, which, by the way, they predicted the 2017 World Series. They put Bryce Harper on the cover as a 16-year-old. Very reputable news outlet, calling me a former MLB pitcher. So I don't know that you can really dispute that we're kind of like former coworkers and current coworkers.
Yeah. I mean, current, I don't remember seeing you on the mound and covering first base and having, a little PFP action.
A lot of people don't remember. A lot of people don't remember, but
I don't. Yeah. You know what though? It's all blur. I mean, blacked out a lot on the field. So,
a lot of years, a lot of dirt under those spikes, as they say. So, I'm sure that there's plenty of pitchers that were out there that you could probably walk past the dude realistically that at some point in your career was a teammate of yours that got an inning of work that had a 1-3 put out at first base and could walk past you in a Starbucks and you would have no fucking idea that you guys are former teammates. Is that true?
I think in the minor leagues, definitely the minor leagues could happen.
Yeah,
I feel horrible if it was the major leagues, but you never. I mean, there's so many times you reflect back on how many guys were there like for a day or two, called up, gone. So yeah, you might be right. I mean, maybe they grew some hair out, a beard. You might not recognize them, but I would go on a limb and say it wasn't because I didn't remember who they were. If they explained it to me after, I would be like, oh yeah, and might even fake it, like oh yeah, one of those.
Mm-hmm.
But
some people age horribly. You look exactly the same as you did in 2007. I think if there were a documentary or a biopic about the 2007 season, you could play yourself.
That's what happens when you lose your hair at a young age and you decide to go bald. And, the goatee, luckily the grays they're there. They're just, people think I dye my goatee. It's hilarious.
Same.
And I laugh all the time. I'm like, you get up close, you see the grays. So listen, I lost all my hair. It's just, I didn't go gray. My dad wasn't that gray. So yeah, we lose our hair, but we get to keep a little color on the face here.
Yeah, that's nice. I have some grays that are coming in now, but you can't really see them unless you're up close. And I didn't lose my hair, so knock on wood for that. It's a nice.
You got great
benefit.
hair. You got great
solid
hair.
moss.
I had my first hair crisis actually this week. I was talking with my girlfriend's mom's friend, who is a hairdresser. She told me I need Rogaine. She said my hairline is pushing back, and if you look on the sides, there's a lot of gray coming in. She said at best by 30. I'll be lucky to still have my hair.
Wow.
So I am in full on TikTok mode trying to learn what I need to do to preserve the hair I have left on my head. But this is bad.
You know who you need to talk to? Jeff Passan.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Jeff Passan knows the secrets. He is someone that I trust with not hair restoration, but more so hair preventative measures.
I don't know what I have to do. I'm considering the hair transplant route, like if I have to get to that point. But some people have the head Youk. Not to weird you out, but you have a very nice head. It's very fitting for a bald man.
Large.
It's a great head.
It's so large.
It's a great head, though. My head, deformed, soft spots, weird, awkward angles where it bends in a little bit.
Gross, even.
Don't say that. There's no need.
The worst part, look, but if I put my head down, you take a photo at the wrong angle, it looks like I have a cone head just because of the length going back. Mm-hmm. So if I've taken a photo before and I've been like this, and I'm like, whoa, that's not good.
Are you 40 yet?
44. Yeah.
Damn.
I'm 45 in March, man.
So you've probably spent, probably almost your half of your life bald.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
So Tyler, you should just fucking shave that thing, dude. Yeah.
I have a chance. She said I have a chance as long as I start to take care of it now.
You got no chance. I don't think you have a chance. And you know what you should do? You should just embrace being bald. Like Kevin Youkilis embraced being bald so early that no one was like, damn, dude, like you're balding, like it's time to give it up. Like you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be Mookie Betts, where it's like, you got to give it up, dude. Like
Albert Pujols. He was fighting it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that bad yet, though.
Yeah, Tyler, listen, the best advice I can give you is this. It's easier to go down in your 20s than to watch guys in their 30s and 40s become so insecure in a time where you should be getting more secure.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, I see guys, I have friends and buddies, they look at, the guys that used to make fun of me, oh, you're bald. I'm like, yeah, I'm bald. What do you want me to do about it? Like, I didn't choose it. My dad was bald. His dad was bald, whatever. One of my kids, he's in the other room. I got two boys. Guessing one of the two will be bald. Both my brothers have hair. I feel bad for the one. I don't want to tell which one. But the coin flip is one of them's going to get it. Mm-hmm. But the guys that later on, it's like a midlife crisis when they're emotional about it. If it's going, let it go.
Let it go. That is 2007 World Series champion Kevin Youkilis telling you to shave your dumb fucking head.
He's not there yet, though.
He's not there.
I have a little time.
Just saying. You have time to get out in front of it is what I'm saying.
You're speaking as a man of privilege, Jared. Your hair looks stronger than ever, more fluffy than ever.
I know.
Mine's thinning.
Really blessed.
I'm stressed. The Red Sox are putting me through things.
Yeah, they are putting you through things. And they just put us through a trade of Alex Verdugo to the New York Yankees, which... this has been rumored for a year now, about a year, and you finally see it happen. You look for the return. You're like, is Gleyber Torres in there? No. All right, it's three pitchers. Okay, like which one? What's this dude's name? Oh, Dick Fitz is one of them. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler. Does he now become the number 2 pitching prospect in the Red Sox organization off the jump?
It's probably 3. He's probably right behind Wilkerman Gonzalez and Luis Perales. Right now, MLB Pipeline has him at 10. In the Yankee system, he was the 12th overall prospect. what was it, 12th? Yeah, 12th on MLB Pipeline, 16th on Baseball America. When MLB Pipeline plugged him into the Red Sox, it was at 10. So that kind of speaks where they're at in terms of being thin pitching wise. But Eastern League Pitcher of the Year, I'm not telling you he's the greatest thing ever. It was a 3.48 ERA, 3.92 FIP in 27 starts going into his age 24 season. The guy I kind of comp him to is like a Josh Winkowski, someone who more likely than not, best case, he'll be like a number 5 starter. Good fastball, gets up to 97, mid 90s with a slider. Doesn't really have that third pitch to go. But when we're talking, the Red Sox and not having those kind of arms at AAA that can come in the middle of the year. So Matt Dermody
move.
Yeah,
it's a depth
Matt
move.
Dermody isn't starting for you.
Now,
you hope in June or July he can be that plug guy for a starter too.
It's a depth move. And Youk, as someone that came up in 2004 and you played through the Dante's Inferno era of the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry, I saw some fans being like, how could they make a deal with the Yankees? Blah, blah. Like, can we not? Like, we're 4th and 5th place teams right now. Like, who cares if they make a deal with the Yankees? And especially if it's Alex Verdugo, who, listen, I don't want to get into a slander fest right now as it pertains to Doogie and the Boston Red Sox, but you hear enough publicly about, him driving his teammates crazy. Like, for example, you were a pro's pro, Youk. You were the veteran example of follow that guy. He has work ethic. This is how it should be done. Play your ass off, and a lot of sweat, like blood, sweat, and tears. Emphasis on the sweat. Kevin Youkilis.
Like right now, but I might in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, so like most of the complaints that we were hearing about publicly with Alex Verdugo were that he would show up late. There was something about like one of the games that he got ejected. He just like went back to the hotel and like met up with some dude that was like selling him chains and shit. Like that type of stuff would have pissed you off. You were teammates with Manny Ramirez. Manny Ramirez was a guy where it's like you can get away with a certain amount of stuff because you're Manny Ramirez. If you're Alex Verdugo, your weighted runs created plus or your OPS plus is basically league average. Like you are offensively the definition of mid. So if you're going to act a certain way that says like, hey, I'm not getting here early, I'm not putting in the extra work, I'm sure that would irritate guys in the clubhouse. Yes or no?
Yeah, well, I think the best analogy you just gave was Manny Ramirez. But Manny Ramirez had an amazing work ethic.
Yeah.
Right. So like Manny worked hard. It's just you never knew what you were going to get. Right. I mean, the whole knee incident where, it's like it was one knee and then it was the other knee. And then they, had to like that thing was wild. And Alice Cora was there when that happened and saw this whole thing. And he can tell that story probably better than anyone. It's a hilarious story. We were in Seattle. But you're right. When you have superstars that maybe have a little friction here and there or are tough and you have to weave your way around things, it's one thing. And I don't know, I didn't know all these stories about the chains and all that. I think Jared knows me best is like, I watch the baseball. Like I get into the baseball. I don't like speculating on personal lives and all that because as an analyst, it's just what's on the field.
Sure.
What's being done on the field is all that matters. And that's how I look at it. I'm not a journalist. People say, oh, you're media now. And I always joke around, I'm not media. I'm just an analyst, but that's kind of wrong in a way. So I always evaluate performance on the field. If your performance on the field is that much farther ahead and you're a little bit of a problem in the club, people are going to accept you. They're going to embrace it because you're the number one guy. You're the 3. Well, I guess now it's the 2-3 hole hitter, not the 3-4 hole hitter back in the day. And you're the ace or you're the closer or if your level of play is that much higher, you can surround yourself with, and I always say this, every team needs 3 grinders. You need 3 grinders, you need 3 dogs in the fight. Those guys are the guys, and I'm talking more on the position players. You also need those Bulldogs type guys that are starters that will eat up innings on the back end if they're not the elite guys. And I think that's one of the things when you evaluate, and this is not just Verdugo, I'm talking about, this is a generality, okay? If you, like you said, if you're average, if you're MLB average and you are not the guy that's showing up on time, you're doing all the little things, You're not trying to get you're not even perceiving to be looking to get better. And you're kind of just a nuisance at times. It's going to be hard for a team to accept to keep you long term, offer you that long term contract to keep you around. And basically, if all these things are true off the field, and these are on, I guess it's on the field / off the field, then you're not going to stay around long. In Boston, especially, there's such a big microscope that if you're not doing all the little things right, those news, outlets they're gonna find it, and they're gonna post it, and they're gonna talk about it on the radio. They're gonna talk about podcasts now. And I think that's a hard thing. And I think if all those distractions were an issue with Verdugo, I mean, he's getting close to being a free agent. You gotta get something back for him. So I think the trade, their intentions were to get pitching. So this is the first step of it. Is, hey, we're going to get rid of a player that, and let's be honest here though too. One thing that getting rid of Verdugo, you're getting rid of one of the best defenders out there in right field. Like, mind you, all that stuff, it's going to be hard to replicate his defensive play in right field. For all he did and all the stuff that, you're talking about, Jared, that right field play was really good this year. And that's a really hard ballpark to play right field in. So maybe they can move Rafaelo. I mean, I don't want to ever move Rafaelo out of center because he's elite, but you're almost having to put another center fielder in right field going forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, it's one of those things where you look at, is it addition by subtraction? I don't know that it's as simple as yes or no, because to your point, even a league average hitter, those are still useful. Like, you're not bad if you're a league average hitter. Like, there's plenty of guys that are below you if you're a league average hitter. He had his clutch moments, but when you look at Verdugo's tenure in Boston, and a lot of it was around the league average territory, we were kind of just sold on his potential being much higher than that. Like, I think we saw it in the first half last year, and I can't speak to this. I know that I was cited as a former MLB pitcher, but like I can't speak to this in terms of how it would bother me because last year he was counting down the weeks. It bothered me as a fan when you're over 500 and you're 4 games back at the time of the wild card, 4 games out, and he's publicly saying 7 more weeks. Like, it's not so much that like the player isn't helping you defensively. To your point, Youk, awesome. Right next to Trevor Story, those are your 1A, 1B best defenders on the team. Offensively, league average, I'm fine with league average, whatever. But when you've got a guy, and you're if you're Craig Breslow, you're Alex Cora, you're trying to say like, hey, we brought in Justin Turner to try and change the culture around here. Justin Turner is 38 years old. Like, that's not a long-term play. If we're going to look at a guy like Alex Verdugo and say, all right, is this someone that we give the Benintendi deal to? Do we give him 5 years, $75 million to keep him around long-term? Well, we take a look at the culture. What's the culture around here? Oh, well, we're in last place again. Is this the guy that we want to build the team around? The guy that's counting down the days until the fucking season's over? The guy that in the second half is worse than he was in the first half? The guy that's showing up late? The guy that's been disciplined multiple times for not putting in effort? Like, no.
And the guy who at the end of the season, say what you will, when he was asked about the incident and how it all played out, goes, yeah, I think sometimes I get it a lot harder than other guys do, or I'm kind of the focus of it. It's like, during arguably, and you always say, Jared, Houston was when you hit the iceberg and everything went off the rails. The boat started leaking during that Blue Jay series when they needed you most. Players were reeling after the deadline. Even 7 weeks later, after you didn't show up at all, you couldn't take accountability. You still kind of said, that's just how it's been my entire career. I'm always the guy who gets the shit end of the stick.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, no one is surprised. You were not surprised, Kevin Youkilis. This was not something that came across your dash and you were like, oh my God, I can't believe that this happened.
No, you knew it was going to happen. And I think I just put out the reasons why it happens a lot of times too, is you got to be smart too. If you're not having somebody as long-term, especially in today's game, where turnover is, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we're seeing so much turnover on teams. I mean, being an analyst is probably the hardest it's ever been too, because it's like, wait, who's that guy in the bullpen?
Yeah.
Man, can't figure it out. Like, it's like trying to get all the name pronunciations.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, man, this is getting harder and harder. But yeah, no, but you also, I think you hit it on the head. Like, with the offensive production, Boston Red Sox notoriously have boppers. You got hitters. You need guys that can drive in the runs. Now, the offense has not been a problem over the past 2 seasons that I've had the luxury of calling games. We all know it's the pitching, but why would you want to go into arbitration, right? So like you have to go in arbitration with this player too now, right? Yeah. It's not, now you have to evaluate, can I go get something on the open market with those dollars? And do I want, like you're saying, a younger, free agent type guy that I can go get and pair with, right? So maybe it's, maybe you're going to spend the money at second base now. Maybe you are okay with the outfield because, you got Duran, you got Rafaela, I'm trying to think of, but then you got, I don't know, it's really hard to evaluate this team right now and what they're trying to do. But we know the number one thing is getting pitching. So they found Verdugo to be that piece to gain a little bit of pitching. Still unknowns, still question marks if these, pitchers can be the guys, but they went out and got what they think they need the most of, and that's pitching.
Yeah. I think Breslow said today, Tyler, correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but he basically said, we're good with going into the season with the outfield as is.
Which is interesting. He did say that, and there was a lot of kind of hype up for Wilyer Abreu, and, put me in charge. Wilyer Abreu fan club, I said at the end of the year, I think going into 2024, he can give you very similar production to what Alex Verdugo has given you. And I think when you start to look at Alex Verdugo's value, look at how we looked at Adam Duvall a year ago. Let's just be honest, right? Adam Duvall's a Gold Glover in a corner outfield spot. Obviously got asked to play center field here, right? He's coming off the wrist injury. That's a guy who plays Gold Glove defense. It's a guy who was also a better offensive player than Alex Verdugo was last year by a pretty good margin. But, he was hurt. That was part of it. How do we look at Adam Duvall and what he's worth as a player in value? He's a guy that's going to be getting, a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal on the market, and it's not crazy money. When you look at what Alex Verdugo costs in this deal, that's kind of where you should match up values. The only reason we look at Alex Verdugo differently is because he's younger. And we say, oh, well, maybe there is still that untapped potential there. And Adam Duvall is a fantastic teammate. Adam Duvall is a guy that, you talk about being a glue guy and people connecting with. Alex Verdugo, we've kind of heard the opposite. And we heard from Chris Cotillo today saying Alex Cora was kind of one of the guys pushing, saying he had no problem with Alex Verdugo being dealt. And look at Alex Cora. Over the years he's been here, we have a large sample size. When has there ever been public issues or kind of things that stuck out with a player? The only one that really, comes close, and I wouldn't say it was Doogie level, is Eduardo Rodriguez, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it was comped to. And we know kind of how the Red Sox have viewed Eduardo Rodriguez this offseason, have we not? Where unlikely reunion, those are a lot of the things we're hearing. Heyman's the only one still putting the Red Sox in that conversation. I haven't seen it anywhere else. But what I will say about them saying they're okay with the current outfield group, look at the rumors we've got in the last 24 hours. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., a guy who could play left field and, he DH as well. You kind of mix and match with Yoshida and Michael A. Taylor, who, had his best offensive season since 2017, still below average bat, but one of the best defenders in baseball in center field. I think they know they need a little help there, but they're trying to transition to that next young group. And if you think Wilyer Abreu can give you Verdugo production, why wouldn't you give him that run? Because he doesn't cost $9.2 million and you get the pitching. It's a lot to put it on him to play right field, though. I will put my hand up. There were some scary moments with him playing center, down the stretch in September.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest question is Yoshida. I think we really need to evaluate Yoshida in a lot of ways. That we're saying he's outfield, but we all know he's a DH. That's what he was in Japan in a lot of ways. And do you still the issues were very glaring. We talked about it all the time, the defense, right? Are you better defensively with what you have out there right now? You got Duran. And are you going to put Duran in right field? Is Duran your center fielder? Is Duran your right fielder? Abreu your center fielder? I think that's the hard part about it. And to me, Duran has been making so many strides forward that do you want him to learn a whole other position in right field? I mean,
And that arm playing in right field, I think there's a lot of things there that it doesn't match up. I think it's center field or left field for him. And like you said, with Yoshida playing left field and, you add another arm if it's Gurriel or something like that, it becomes hard to fit things. And who knows? Maybe there's a Jarren Duran trade on the table and none of us know, and he's going to Seattle for Logan Gilbert.
Every writer seems to want to package Jarren Duran and Tanner Houck for somebody this offseason. That's every trade proposal, mock trade I've seen has Duran and Houck going for somebody. But out of those three guys, Abreu, Duran, and Rafaela, I have to think that they're going into next year with, hey, whoever comes out of spring training hot. Like, I don't think that they have a plan right now out of those three guys. For center field and right field, they kind of just want to see where those pieces fall when it comes time for it. I think that they're probably in the market maybe for another outfielder. And if it doesn't happen, if the price isn't right, then they are actually comfortable going into next season with those four dudes.
I think one thing you need to look at and evaluate too is what we've seen in baseball and what's winning on the offensive side are the teams that put the ball in play. It's been noted, it's been shown that the teams that are winning are putting the ball in play. It's not high strikeout rates. It's, the teams that can lower that, and it's a big deal. So there's on the offensive side of the ball, that has been known to be the one thing that has put people at the top echelon to get them into the playoffs, get them in the World Series. On the other side, it's the bullpen use, right? The bullpen use last year for the Red Sox was astronomical. You look, the San Francisco Giants didn't make the playoffs. They were number one all year of using their bullpen. And they had a good pitching staff. We saw that when the Red Sox played the Giants. I mean, low scoring games against a high powered offense like the Red Sox. I don't know if I should say high powered, but run scoring offense. So for me, you got to look at that. Rafaela, I love the way he's progressed. I think but he's going to be a strikeout guy. Abreu, we'll see if he's going to be a strikeout guy, can get into some big hacks sometimes, but also can put together some good at bats. You got Story, who's going to be a strikeout guy, in a lot of ways. So for me, if I'm playing the game as like Craig Breslow is and looking and evaluating, I want to make sure that this team, and Yoshida, he's not a strikeout guy, right? But Verdugo wasn't a strikeout guy. He was a guy that was going to put the ball in play, battle, foul off some pitches. So when you lose that and you lose Justin Turner, if Justin Turner doesn't come back, another guy that was a grinder, you got to make sure that when you're building this roster of starters, you're not negating that. Because if you get some more guys in there that are higher strikeout rates, that's when things can go good. When they're good, you're getting a lot of offensive production. But when it's bad, you get really cold, and you're going to get that, that, as I always call it, the ocean waves versus that lake effect, the smaller waves. So that's something that I would like to look into of how the Red Sox are going to approach this, and we'll see how it goes. But for me, less guys that are striking out more is going to be a positive thing for the Red Sox because they lost. Duvall was a strikeout guy, and if he doesn't come back, it's okay. But those other two with Turner and Verdugo, those guys were tough outs.
I think that's why someone like Gurriel sticks out so much. I think he struck out 17% of the time last year. That was his K rate. That's a guy you could bring in here and you hope he kind of profiles with 25 homer power and it all comes together. Now, do I want to see him in right field? No, I'd be very scared. And he played a good left field last year. I guess where I would question it, Youk, is everyone's obsessed over the Tom Werner comments about going full throttle. Now, if we're entering 2024, a year where you're hoping the Red Sox are taking that leap, it's no longer fringy, you're right in the thick of the conversation. Maybe not a World Series contender, but for making a playoff spot. If I'm telling you at least two of your outfield spots are very questionable, whether it's, Duran, Abreu, Rafaela, those three making up center field and right field, does that really feel like a team that's going full throttle over the offseason and trying to push in that direction? Or is that more of a bridge year where we're still trying to bring some of these young guys along so the core can come together here and we're ready to go all in maybe in another year?
That's a good question. I think they're so focused on the pitching that they knew how bad the starting rotation had so many issues this year. Not being able to get out of the fourth inning. How many times have we watched starters come out of that fourth inning and you're like, wow, this is a struggle. And the bullpen was great. I mean, Chris Martin was so fun to watch. I mean, this guy threw 3 fastballs, 3 different variations of fastballs. He'd get it, have that stern look, and here's a sinker, here's a cutter, here's a 4-seamer, sit down, next batter. And then to Kenley. But I'm with you. I think you got to go out and get that bat. You got to get that bat because I think it only protects Raffy. I think Raffy struggles when you don't have somebody that's, you do have your Casas, but you need maybe that right-handed power bat in some ways. Can Trevor Story come back to form? I don't know. I haven't seen it, and he hasn't had that. Sometimes when you have these health issues, it's hard to get in that rhythm to get back in offensively to where you need to be. I'm a big Trevor Story fan. I love his defense. I love the way he goes about it, his hustle, all that stuff. And it's just hopefully, and he's working on it. He's a guy that gets a little wide with his base, and he gets out a little bit too much, and that's where you're seeing a lot of the sliders away. It's a hard pitch to handle when a guy starts drifting forward and getting really big in his stride. What I'd love to see from Trevor, if hopefully he's working on this, and he's been working on, I think, a little bit with Pete Fatsy about, is staying taller on that backside and allowing himself to be able to handle that slider, and not even just to hit it, to take it, right? So when you're going forward, that ball looks like it's right there and it's escaping you and getting outside of the strike zone. So if Trevor can make that little bit of adjustment of staying tall, he made a few of these adjustments, not last year, the year before, when he started getting really hot. When his base was too wide, it started drifting forward. If he can keep that right hip a little taller on that backside and he can get back to form, he might be that guy that can hit you 30 home runs if he's healthy. I think he can at Fenway. But that's an if. So if you have that if, you're going to also have to maybe try to go get that right-handed bat because a lot of lefties in that lineup. So for me, if I'm in Craig Breslow's shoes and I want to go get a right-handed bat.
We're going to take a quick break from our interview with Kevin Youkilis to bring you a word from our sponsor. Baseball may be finished, but there's a new season to be happy about, the holidays. And the beer that was perfect for baseball is also the perfect match for a brighter holiday. From its bold, refreshing flavor to its beautiful, bright color, Blue Moon Belgian White Belgian-style wheat ale is made brighter for the holidays. One of my favorite things to do when drinking a Blue Moon is walking up to the mirror and just admiring my hair. I love having hair. It's just the best, having it, not losing it. Unfortunately, Tyler, I guess, just broke some news. He's going bald. My favorite part about Tyler going bald is this is just going to give me unbelievable ammo for my Blue Moon ad reads. Anytime that bald asshole says something stupid moving forward, I'm just going to remind him how bald he is and how bald he's going to be. And I'll do it all while sipping on an ice cold Blue Moon, because Blue Moon Brewing Company beers are made brighter as the perfect complement to the holiday season. From Blue Moon Belgian White's refreshing flavor, to Light Sky's real tangerine peel taste, to Moon Haze's juicy burst of flavor, the whole crowd will be reaching for the bright stuff this holiday. With its refreshing flavor with Valencia orange peel for subtle sweetness and hints of coriander, Blue Moon Belgian White Belgian-style wheat ale is a beer that's made brighter. It's carefully crafted and full-flavored with refreshing notes and a smooth, creamy finish. The season should be merry and bright, so Blue Moon is a perfect match for the holidays. The crack of a beer, the pour, the first sip of that bold flavor, Blue Moon always feels like a special occasion. Best served with its signature orange garnish to showcase its beautiful bright color, a beer this good only comes around once in a blue moon, but you can enjoy it all through the holidays. Brighten up the holidays with a beer that's made brighter. Get Blue Moon Belgian White Belgian-style wheat ale, Light Sky, and Moon Haze delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/Jared for delivery options. That's get.bluemoonbeer.com/Jared. Blue Moon, made brighter. Celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado Ale.
Do you remember the pursuit of Daisuke Matsuzaka? Like, obviously, you weren't going to Japan personally, but
the gyro?
Do you remember how that took over Red Sox Nation and showing up to spring training in 2007 with quadruple the media attention?
See, and this is why you're giving Tyler a layup for the 07 World Series championship as the number one.
Yeah.
It was Dice Mania.
It was.
Dice Mania was in full effect. It was wild. The best part about it was none of us ever saw that gyro pitch.
Nobody.
That magical pitch, like that was made up.
Yeah.
Never once did I ever see that pitch that they talked about.
Did you face it? Did you do live ABs against him in spring training at all?
Yeah, I did. But the best part was this is perfect for a podcast. So getting ready for the World Series, we had that layover, right? I think there was a little bit of layover. Was it World Series?
Yes, it was the World Series.
And we had a little bit of a layover. And I'll never forget, Petey and I faced Dice K. And we were hitting missiles everywhere off Dice K. And it was bad. It was bad. And Petey looked at me and he's like, "That boy Youk." He's like, "I'm just nervous. I don't know if he's going to be able to handle the Rockies." And I go, "Petey, don't worry. He's facing us. He doesn't have to face us in the World Series."
That's true.
And Petey's like, "That's right. Yeah." I'll never forget Petey's look of fear. Like, "Oh man, I'm like, "No, Petey, he's facing us." And we always had that banter back and forth, and Petey was so funny about it. But I'll never forget that Dice K facing him, getting ready and preparing. And he had no confidence, I don't think, after that day, because we were hitting missiles everywhere.
Well, he drove in a run in the World Series.
He did.
He did. More World Series RBI than Aaron Judge. That's a fact. Daisuke Matsuzaka.
And Arson.
Talk about that.
Arson Judge, too.
Arson Judge. Yeah, he's got 0. Absolutely. Today's the anniversary of Arson Judge signing with the San Francisco Giants.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, that's the team that I'm worried about. Like, obviously, I'm greasing the skids to talk about Yamamoto here. That's a team that I'm worried about because they've whiffed on so many superstars that they've got to get somebody. Like, at some point, they've got to sign somebody. They were originally in on Bryce Harper, and then you got Correa. I mean, like, maybe they end up with Ohtani. I don't know, but they're not even like named right now with Ohtani. They're just always lying in the weeds, but never actually get the job done. It's kind of odd because it's an awesome place to play. The fans are super passionate. They obviously have the money if they keep going out there and they're in these free agent frenzies. The organization treats their players like absolute royalty. Like, if I were a free agent as a former MLB pitcher myself, I would love to play for the San Francisco Giants. Somehow they just whiff on every single big name free agent. It is kind of mind boggling. But for
I
you,
live out here. I live here. I'm around this.
The area is cool. If you can get past the heroin, it's a great place to live.
I would say the area of the ballpark's not really great.
No,
I can, to be honest with you, and I'll be honest, and I know this was, this is live and all that. I don't ever go to San Francisco.
Why not?
Because it's a mess.
Where do you go?
The whole city of San Francisco, when I first moved out here 11 and a half years ago, slowly year after year, the decline of San Francisco got so bad. And in a big part, it's close to the ballpark. You walk straight, like you go up that street, it's not good. Mm-hmm. So there's also things, and some people will disagree with this. It's the taxes in a lot of ways too. A lot of agents are working with the financial advisors, and they're coming up with spreadsheets of your scenarios if you go play for every team. So each team you go play for, if you get paid X, this is what you're going to make. And that has dictated a lot of the terms of these players. So for me, the Giants are going to have to always overspend, right? They're always going to have to overspend because you're just going to make less. There's high taxes there. There's those issues. The cost of living here is outrageous in so many ways. So a lot of times I agree with you. I think the organization is amazing. Pat Burrell's the hitting coach. I mean, who doesn't want to be with Pat the Bat?
Yeah.
Just saw him at a concert like a month and a half ago, and it was so cool to see him get the job. And he's hilarious, and deserving of the job. But I think there are a lot of issues that are more off the field with the dynamics of signing players there. I agree with you. Beautiful ballpark, great organization that takes care of people. But I think all those other things, the Giants are always going to have to overspend versus other teams. I mean, especially with like a Texas. I mean, a lot of guys are talking about this. When Vegas gets a new team, when you don't have that income tax, that's a big deal to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially, you brought up Texas. Like, you get your bang for your buck down there if you're talking about cost of living and all that. So shout out to Corey Seager and Marcus Simeon and Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi. Like, those guys, smart business decision. How closely have you been following the Yamamoto free agent sweepstakes, and you had some involvement. You were hitting coach with Team Israel, right?
Yeah.
And so, did you get to see him pitch before? Like, what's your familiarity with Yamamoto?
No, I mean, I was trying to think too. Like, was he this young kid? And I faced him at one point. I got to go look that up.
He's 25.
Yeah.
You faced Ohtani?
I faced Ohtani. Yeah.
When the hell did you do that?
I played in Japan. You didn't mention that other team.
Well, there were other what year was that? How old was he?
It was 2014.
So he was 11?
I mean, your math is great.
2014,
that
he would have been
9
19, right?
Yeah, he'd be like 19, 20 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What did you? Was he as hyped? Was he hyped up back then?
Oh yeah, yeah. So this is great. So I played against him. Andrew Jones was my teammate. So it was like we were over there in Japan together. It was hilarious. And we played against Ohtani, and Andrew was like, "Oh man, this young guy, he's going to be legit, like blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Oh okay." He throws hard. He was throwing like 97 then, throwing gas. And he's like, "Oh yeah, he hits too. He's a really good hitter." So we're there, and I'm watching. We play a series, and I'm like, I didn't see anything this series, right? Like, he kind of slapped the ball a little bit, was a big kid, he's a big kid, but slapped the ball a little bit. Didn't see anything driven like he does now. So before he comes over, I was with the Cubs with Theo. And, Theo goes, "Hey, did you play against Shohei over, Ohtani?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I played against him. Yeah." He goes, "What'd you think?" I was like, "Listen, pitching wise, he's great. Like, he's gonna be good. Hitting, I don't know, man. I just don't know about this guy." I was like, he kind of just
imagine you're the reason why Theo went back and was like, "Honestly, fuck this dude. Like, we're not spending money on this guy. Sucks."
So it was hilarious. Like, my evaluation was in a short little window, and this is a good lesson in baseball. Never evaluate off a small sample size. You got to see the full picture.
Yeah.
But legitimately, I laughed so hard in Shohei's he's crushing balls all over the place. I'm like, man, that scouting report was the worst scouting report I've ever given on a player. But his pitching was legit. So I had half of it right.
He was 11. Obviously, a guy is going to grow into his body. I mean, he's what, 6'4", 6'5"? He's a monster.
Yeah, but he changed. You could see the change in the shift of how he went about it at the plate too, though. He wasn't the same guy, because it's hard over there in Japan. It's the senpai, you respect your elders, and you do the little things that they want you to do. And it's very team oriented and very manager oriented. Whatever the manager wants, you got to do. If not, see ya. You go to the minor leagues. It's hardcore. When they send you to the minor leagues, you go to the minor leagues. Now, it's not like minor leagues like us now. You go to the minor leagues there, and it's rough. But I think that was a little bit of the part of it. And I think getting over to, the States and getting into, professional baseball here kind of helped him get to another level.
Yeah, I think where we're getting now, especially after the World Baseball Classic this year, I think we're finally starting to get to a place where people in the United States are respecting the talent level in Japan. And I mean, it goes both ways, right? I think the talent level in Japan wasn't always as great as it is right now. Sure, there were great Japanese baseball players, but I think overall we're getting to a point where Japanese talent is at its peak, and the awareness of that talent is catching up with the peak of the talent existing itself. What was your experience like playing over there, comparatively speaking, to the talent that you played in the United States at the time?
Yeah, the talent was, the talent mainly consisted of what we're seeing here is the pitching, right? You have more of the pitching than you do the offense. There was a few guys over there that you could say, hey, maybe they might have a chance to play over here. There was one guy on Shohei's team. He was a left fielder. I totally forget his name, but he actually had more of an American, big righty, thicker guy, could drive the ball out of the yard a little bit, and looked more like a major league hitter. per se. I think one of the big ones over there that I saw it was weird. It's like, so if the leadoff hitter gets on base, automatically the second guy bunts him over. It was like automatic every day, and it used to drive me nuts. I used to go like, hold on, are we playing for one run in the first? I was like, what are you I was like, after our second hitter, it's Andrew Jones, and then me. It's like, let's go, Bob. Let's try to get free. But it was always a systematic way of going about it. I think offensively, it's going to be hard for some of those guys. I think you're going to always have like the elites hitters over there that can come over here, but I don't think you could pick like one guy from each team and they all have success if they came over here. I think you're always going to have a couple hitters that are going to be good. Oh, sorry about my dog. He's going nuts here. That's my Mastiff. He's just going
sounds
off.
Big wherever he is.
190.
Yeah, he's got some bass in his voice.
Yeah, he's not happy. He's not happy whoever's here. But it's I think that's what you're seeing a lot of. It's just the offense. If they had more of an offensive structure from a young age of learning how American style, or not American, the rest of the world, Dominican, Venezuela, more of a North American, South American hitting style, I think you'd have a better chance of developing guys quicker that would be able to get into the major leagues because their work ethic is off the charts. And I think some of it and the training and what they do kind of goes against the power that we teach here. A lot of it is a lot of running, a lot of different stuff. And I mean, they'll have a 3-hour practice that you've never even seen anything like it. Luckily, Andrew Jones and I got to do our own thing. They're like, hey, show up when you guys get here. You're good.
Yeah. As a talent evaluator, say hypothetically, Craig Breslow calls you today and he's like, Youk, we love Yamamoto. Everyone loves Yamamoto. But what's your take on him being under 6 feet and it's going to cost $250 minimum for this kid? 25 years old, so you like the age, but do you like the profile of a guy like that to be a major league starter or someone that's played professionally here and there?
Well, I think he's got the pedigree. I think his track record and how dominant he's been over in Japan shows that he can play here. If you dominate over there, you can play here. And pitching wise, especially. I would always say this, that we have seen a lot of times that Japanese pitchers, when they have to come to the United States, it's different. It's a different schedule. Every Monday's off in Japan, 6-man rotation. The start, the ace is always throwing. I think it's on that Tuesday. I forget now, like which day the ace throws or whatever. But that might not be right either. Sorry. I don't want to say something that's totally inaccurate. But they pitch once a week. What we have seen and I think this is pretty accurate, correct me if I'm wrong, at one point they get Tommy John surgery when they come over here. A lot of guys have it, and a lot of it probably comes off the split finger. That is a big pitch that is taught there and a devastating pitch. So for me, you're looking at it and you're evaluating and saying, I'm probably going to get one of those years might be a Tommy John year, just based on, like you said, size, velocity, different use of the arm, and having to only pitch every 5 days versus every, once a week. Maybe that's something. But they have a lot of pitches they've thrown. Their bullpens that they throw over there, I'll never forget. When I walked down one day, I was hearing wham, wham. I was like, who is pitching right now? Somebody is throwing 100 miles per hour in a bullpen session. I was like, this is insane. And that's what they do. They go, like, when they're not pitching during that week, they go hardcore and they throw, I don't know how many pitches, but it seemed like a lot. And they're just cracking that glove and throwing max velocity. So maybe that has something to do with there's a lot of bullets that have been thrown, and that's maybe why when they come over, you see the injury.
They have the Yamamoto thing, right? Like in their World Series this past year, he threw 138 pitches in a complete game. It's like you would never ever see that happen here anymore. It wouldn't even be a thought. But to go 138 and go a full game, different rules, different outlook on how pitchers act.
Yeah, third time through the order doesn't matter in Japan.
Is the the rate in which pitchers get Tommy John surgery, is it as prominent in Japan?
I'm not sure. That's actually a good question. I'd have to research that and look that up. But I'll tell you what, though. I mean, right now it's hard to watch baseball with all these guys going down like that. I mean,
I agree.
To me personally, I can't stand all the arm injuries. I've talked to a lot of orthopedic surgeons. I mean, they're doing surgeries on kids at 14, 15 years old now. And when people are like, oh, no, but the game's changed, I'm like, yeah, the game has changed in a bad way. When our young kids are getting surgeries in high school, how many people do you know in high school that had Tommy John surgeries?
There.
I don't remember anyone. I had two buddies in college that had Tommy John surgeries. Both were position players, which is wild, right? Two guys, non-pitchers, had Tommy John. And I just think there's something going on here. And I don't know how to change it because that's not my expertise. But when people are like, oh, no, it's okay, you just get Tommy John. It's not okay. I mean, you do bounce back, but not everyone bounces back the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like it's like an automatic, you're going to be better, you're going to be throwing harder and all that. You know, for one that works, I don't know what the correlation between, the Tommy John surgeries that work and don't work. But I think the biggest thing for me is somebody needs to start talking more about this. Like, what is driving all these issues and why is it acceptable now? Like, you just want to have these guys and then they blow out and then you just move on to another guy. I don't know if the fans like it. I don't like it. I mean, I love to see the seventh, eighth, ninth inning guy from year to year kind of stay there. And then hopefully they get paid because they dominated and had some success. And maybe you have to move on. But these arm injuries are getting out of control.
Well, now what you're starting to see is, I mean, it's obviously not happening across the country, but you're out on the West Coast, you're in California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, the baseball hotbeds that produce some of the best talent that enters the draft pre-college, post-high school. Kids in high school are getting Tommy John preemptively. They're just getting it. They don't need it. They're just like, all right, yeah, might as well get it done now because I'm going to need it later. Or they think that, oh, if I take a tendon from my leg and put it in my elbow, then that'll just make me stronger. I'll be able to throw faster. Like that's the name of the game. It's almost like, if you I guess in the 90s when dudes were taking steroids, it's like, well, I'm not getting paid to hit 320 anymore. I'm getting paid to hit 45 home runs and drive in 120 runs. So I'm going to take steroids to be stronger to hit home runs. Well, now, these relievers, it's all about max velocity. Like, I mean, for a good reason. Like, the faster it is, the harder it is to hit. So you're punching dudes out. They're paying for strikeouts. Okay, all right, cool. So I'm going to light up a radar gun. I'm going to punch out a bunch of guys, and I'm going to secure my family's future. Bring in the weighted balls, all these other things that whatever they're doing at these velocity farms that are popping up all over the place to improve, add 5 miles an hour to your fastball. Okay, but at what cost? You're gonna blow out in a year and a half.
Yeah, the longevity thing is a hard thing because for me, I was like, I want to play baseball. I don't want to be hurt. I love the game. I loved baseball. Like, I was, like my dad said, I mean, I signed for $12,000, in 2001 to go play baseball. My dad's like, you got to give Kevin a 6-pack of beer and he would have gone and played. Giving him that much money. Now he just gets that many more 6-packs of beer. But it's it's weird. I couldn't imagine just wanting and I get it. I get that the velocity thing is a real thing, but for me, I think one of the hardships of the game is there's so many things that have been changed in the game of baseball by people in higher places. And I think Theo was the best one that, kind of got in the rules committee and said, we screwed this up in many ways. He admitted to it. But is the game better for the fans? Because in the end, our egos as baseball players, oh yeah, we're major leaguers and it's our game and all that. No, it's not just our game. It's our game when the first pitch is thrown, that's our game. But that game's not being played without the fans, the people that work there, all the people and all the things that get that thing going. It's really about that. And I think the fans hurt in the end when we see all these injuries. And to me, I don't know. It's annoying to me personally. I don't know, like from a fan base perspective, but it's I don't know what to. It's like you feel helpless. Like, what do you say? What do you do? But like I said, I mean, going back to the whole thing with you're going to factor in the guy's going to have Tommy John.
Yeah, and that's a scary thought when, but at least on this side of the ball, he's 25. Like it's not like I remember when old Smoltzy came over here in 09, and it's like that was fucking nuts. Like he had the elbow surgery, and I just remember the big story that offseason was, have you seen this video of John Smoltz throwing a fucking football? It's crazy. Perfect spiral. And they're like, oh, he can throw a perfect spiral? $10 million. Come on down, John Smoltz. And he plays out his last season. Hall of Famer, love Smoltzy. But I think we've just learned so much more about these elbow injuries and everything like that and the recovery time. But I don't know. I'm just fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by this wave of talent that's coming from Japan, and how, like I tweeted the other day about how Japan and the Dominican Republic were basically the two biggest baseball countries in the world now, and you would have said the United States. The United States is still.
Whoa. Do not.
United States.
Hold on.
United States. Well, who besides Japan,
Venezuela.
U.S. and
Venezuela
is in the Puerto Rico is in the conversation. Where would you put? Would you put Venezuela above Japan, the United States, or Dominican Republic?
100%.
You
100%.
would? What?
I would put Venezuela in. I put Dominican 1, Venezuela 2.
What?
Acuna.
That's one guy.
Miguel Cabrera.
It's been 20 years ago.
Who was the second baseman for the team that's been in the playoffs for how many years now? The Astros. Altuve. I mean,
Yeah.
when we played Venezuela in the WBC, I was like, everyone sleeps on Venezuela. I have no idea why they sleep on Venezuela, but Venezuela's talent is amazing.
Puerto Rico's is too. I feel like Venezuela and Puerto Rico, people sleep on those because
Venezuela is number one and underrated.
Yeah. They're in the same tier for me.
How many Japanese players are in the major leagues?
I would love to pull up that data of the breakdown. Tyler, I feel like you could probably get
I guarantee there's way more Venezuelan players in the major leagues than Japanese.
That's probably true. I would say
and pro ball.
Yeah. In the big leagues, I mean, we'll probably be able to get like the breakdown. Most recently would be like 2022. I bet they don't even have.
I'm gonna have to get Marco Scudero and Victor Martinez on this podcast just so you can have to talk about Venezuela.
Venezuelan baseball. I would love to have their. I love international baseball. I mean, that is.
Right.
I don't, as you know, I don't care about other sports. I know you love football. That's a passion of yours. You like college basketball too?
It's funny. I have fallen off on basketball as a whole, just because it's like my kids are playing basketball, and so my time of driving around and all that, and I come home it's always on and stuff. But I don't watch basketball like I used to. I didn't grow up with an NBA team in Cincinnati. We had a lot of college around there, so I was a Bearcat and loved the Bearcats. So college basketball was a big deal, but I just fallen off the radar. I stick to two: football and baseball.
What's your guys' guess for the MPB to MLB? How many players?
How many Japanese-born players are in MLB?
MPB to MLB.
Ever or this year?
This year. Current. Let's put it like that.
11?
10.
8. Yu Darvish, Kenta Maeda, Shohei Ohtani, Yusei Kikuchi, Seiya Suzuki, Yoshida, Shintaro Fujinami, and Kodai Senga.
Did you say Senga twice?
I don't think so. Kenta Maeda? Is that who you got to mix with?
8. How many Venezuelans?
That one's going to be a long list.
Where are you getting this information from?
Wikipedia. Someone has the entire list. All right.
Play.
It's a long
say
list.
Active Venezuelan major leaguers right now?
Yeah, we should guess that one.
Yeah. Is it more than 45?
I don't have it. There's no active here, but all time it's close to 500.
Well, all time. I want to know right now. Right now.
Don't worry. I have a feeling. You know what I want? I want a screenshot of Tyler's computer. I want to see the craziness on that thing.
Oh,
It's not
you
good.
want to know how many tabs this dude has open right now?
I mean,
they're so small.
Earlier, he was looking at something. I was like, I want to see a screenshot of Tyler's computer and all the stats, all the information. He's probably got fan graphs going in the
Seriously.
background.
Baseball Savant in 3 different tabs.
Yep. He's got the.
What's your favorite? Okay, so what do you got? Okay, this is a good question. When you guys are doing your baseball research, what do you guys like to go off the most?
So I think it's an imperfect science. I think you need to blend all 3 to kind of get most of the stuff. Baseball Savant, you're going to get all those extra metrics and those different things. I think Fangraphs, personally for me, is the easiest in terms of, easily getting to certain things like FIP, and you can kind of see a little more clearer, defensive runs saved, all those other things. And if you want to do, this by a certain date or break things down season by season. And then BREF, if I'm just trying to combine things real quick and kind of put them together, that's my quick. Like if you need a quick answer, usually I'm rated BREF.
I use True Media. It does all that.
That's so corny for you to say that. No one else has that.
On,
I'm sorry that you're fucking peasants.
Like
What?
this. Like if you throw True Media in there, just throw your nose up. Like, let's talk.
My favorite food's caviar. Like,
Yeah.
fucking
Hey,
congratulations, dude.
listen,
I hope you enjoy
True
it.
Media
Listen.
I had True
You did?
Media as the hitting coach of Team Israel, and it
Okay.
was unreal.
The best.
I've been trying to get to views for that. It's not
unbelievable.
happening.
They
But
are
it's
very,
unreal.
very, very protective. Yes. So
Okay, so you gotta give me. I'm gonna ask. Bring your laptop so I can get some stuff for the games.
Okay.
'Cause those heat maps for me are the greatest scouting reports I've ever done.
Yep.
Like if I had those when I played, we had great stuff, but this True Media, it's
the real deal.
it's information overload.
Yeah, I was employee number 2 at that company originally when they first started. So I've been using it my entire career.
Your
Fascinating.
pitching career.
That's how I used to come up with my game plans for hitters. Every 5th day I'd
What
go out
was your
there and
ERA?
have my heat maps. It was like low 2s. It was like low 2s,
Nice.
but it ballooned at the end because I blew out and I ran out of gas when I was trying.
How many
to,
years?
17 years, but it was more like I was just heavy on the Toradol at the end there. I was just really trying to fight through it, and but it was for my teammates at the end of the day. That's why you play. Both. Both. Last season it was a little bit of both. It was a little bit of both. So it was kind of just one of those things where had I retired when I should have, those numbers look a lot better than what they ended up finishing at. But I was talking to a AAA hitting coach who's no longer a AAA hitting coach, but he was at the time, and he was using the heat maps and different things that True Media does, and they just had an approach, and then immediately they saw it paid dividends within 2 seasons. Like they went from bottom 3rd to 2nd in the league, and all the statistics that they had cornered and circled. So it's a powerful tool.
Jared, for people who don't know, now you've put me on to a lot of these things. Kevin, obviously working in media. Regular people who, go on to Fangraphs and get a quick stat, what's the difference? And why is it so hard to get True Media?
We talk like normal folk. Jared's he's on this whole other level of look at me over here kind of guy.
There's gonna be people who are sitting there typing in TrueMedia.com.
Yeah, guess what?
Baseball. Baseball Savant is great, right? You can get for me, it's the pitch shaping. I just see pitch shaping so I can tell hey, does this guy have carry on the ball? Does he have life? Does his horizontal break? What does he got? What's against league average? So that is always. You get that on True Media too. So I think that's the biggest one when doing a scouting report for pitching. I use that a lot, but it's Baseball Reference. I think Baseball Reference would be more for the play-by-play guy, right? So it's interesting. The play-by-play guy versus the color analyst is kind of a fun dynamic because OB and Mike, they will utilize things that I would never even look up. It's like the media guy. Like, I don't look at the media guide a lot of times because I'm like, you take that, I'll evaluate what's happening on the field. Because I don't need to get into, hey, he's from, he's a second round pick, out of, that stuff to me is like, I don't have enough time and my brain would not be able to process it all in real time. And my cheat sheet would be so long that I would never get anything off. Like, it would literally be like, it just sound ridiculous. So, I think for me, Baseball Savant has been, I'll tell you, what do you like about the update though, Tyler? When they update at the end of the year?
I love the little like function you can do through the years now as well too, so you can kind of see the differences over time. I even love someone like Wilyer Abreu, right? In September, usually before then you had to wait for a guy to qualify. It was so fucking annoying for Jarren Duran the entire season before he finally had enough plate appearances to see where he's at. Now you at least see where he would rank, via the bar, so you can kind of put these pictures together. Like, people see me post Abreu's from time to time because you see, damn, there's a lot of red there. Small sample. It doesn't qualify overall, but I don't know. I think Baseball Savant's the best tool. Visually, it's easy to kind of put together. If you want, weighted runs created plus or WOBA or, FWAR, right? You go to Fangraphs. BREF, it's like, all right, give me OPS plus. You can get your splits or kind of the easy stuff. But it's also, besides OPS plus and BWAR, you can get most of that stuff on Fangraphs too. So like that's where I kind of lean. Baseball Savant, you're going to get your advanced metrics, a lot of that other stuff. Fangraphs, you get, weighted runs created plus some of that other. But the percentiles on Baseball Savant feels like one of the easier ways to communicate stuff to people.
Yeah.
This is a normal, I like the normal guy talk here. This is great.
It's like, I'm just looking down from my tower being like, how do the peasants get their bread? How do you guys survive on the streets?
I tell Jared, I was like, I spent 40 minutes on Fangraphs today, like changing filters, trying to get something. And Jared's like, oh, why didn't you just text me? I'll just type it in real quick and give you the entire answer. Like, fuck off, man. It shouldn't be that easy.
It is. It really is that good. I mean, we're giving a huge shout out to Truman. It's legit.
This episode of the Name Redacted podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Whether or not your family gives gifts during the holidays, you get to define how you give to yourself. And the holidays are a great time to do that. So whether it's by starting therapy, going easier on yourself during the tough moments, or treating yourself to a day of complete rest, remember to give yourself some love this holiday season. I've benefited from therapy in the past. I know Jared's talked a lot about his experiences in therapy and how it's helped him. I think the biggest misconception is that people think they have to have experienced some sort of major trauma to get into therapy. That's just not the case. If you have anything going on in your day-to-day life that you need to get off your chest and you feel like talking to someone might help, then BetterHelp's for you. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Jared today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/Jared.
This is a question for you guys too, though. What do you think? Like Tyler, you're a little more, with the WOBA and all that. You're getting in the deep stats on a broadcast, right? I guess this is subjective too. How much of that information do you want in a game?
I think it's a tough balance. Like, I think the StatCast broadcasts that have been going on the last couple of years are interesting, where you're getting OPS plus right up there and you can kind of see the game through that lens. But I do kind of keep it to a spot for me. I like a balance. I think Will has done like a really good job of that, where he'll throw a little bit of that in there here and there, where you'll get some of the Baseball Savant stuff, but it still feels like a traditional broadcast. The only time I get frustrated or annoyed is when people completely throw it away, where they're like, I don't get the data. I don't understand it. Oh, Tristan Casas is into that. Tristan Casas is into this. Spare me on it all. You know what I mean? Back in my day, I cared. What's he hitting for batting average? I'm like, all right, you need to find the middle ground. It's not too far in one direction or the other, but you should be able to walk and do the talk of a little bit of both.
Yeah, I think I want it all, but not too overboard. Like, once you start hitting me with Sierra, I'm going to check out. But I think it's you can't just give me one without the other. Like, if you tell me this dude has a 3.67 ERA, I find it very useful to know that his FIP is 5.40. That means he's had a lot of luck. And like, hey, like, we might be able to get to this guy tonight. Like, hey, don't be intimidated because he's got an ERA in the threes. His FIP is 540. So like he's had a lot of help here. So don't be discouraged that the Sox won't get through to this guy tonight. Or it's like, all right, a guy is hitting 247. It's like, oh, so he sucks. Well, no, like his on base percentage is 360 and he's slugging 510. All right. So that's pretty fucking good. Like he doesn't get very many hits, but when he does, he's walking a lot. He's having good at bats, and when he does put the bat on the ball, he's crushing the baseball. Like it all goes together. I can't just have one without the other. Especially like even just OPS by itself. Like if you tell me that a guy has an 810 OPS, I want to see how that breaks down. Like is it just more like he doesn't have a lot of pop, but he just walks a lot, or does he not really get on base a ton, but he just hits the shit out of the baseball? Like I want to know all of that, and it's all important, and it all goes hand in hand.
Like the big thing with me is like Youk, when you're in there and you can get kind of into the other stuff that isn't, anyone can give you, as long as you put the time in, a baseball savant page and percentiles. It's just memorizing data and connecting it with the game. You can talk about being in the batter's box. Jerry Remy was so great at this, right? Where you kind of bridge the gap to what you see as a player and that language and how it's a little different. I need some of that in there too, because that's a perspective. I didn't play high school baseball. Like that's something I have no clue about. Like I want to be informed about it and learn about it.
I think that's also my next question is this. When you're watching and listening, do you already know the stats that I'm about to say?
No, I mean, like it depends. If you're a 162 guy or girl, you're watching every single night. You would think that, we're kind of, that we would know exactly, but a guy might get hot for, so I think in baseball, first impressions are huge, right? So I'm just throwing a name out there. Say, Adam Duvall starts at the end of April. He's hitting $180 and he hasn't homered yet. It's like, all right. So in my mind, it's like, oh man, he sucks this year. Like I'm not even thinking about it, but he gets hot in May, but like, you're kind of like, this dude's pitching well. And like the Red Sox are on a winning streak. You're not paying attention to it. Next thing you know, like May 20th, Adam Duvall's hitting 280 and you're like, oh fuck. Like I want to know. Cause like it drives Dallas, Dallas, it drives Dallas nuts that I look at baseball in fragments and segments. And that comes from, first originally using Baseball Reference and then using websites like True Media, where like you can't just, I hate when people look at a player's statistics for the whole year and that's just what they are. Like this guy's hitting 265 with a 780 OPS. Okay. But like, did he start off really slow? And over the last 6 weeks, he's hitting 390 with an OPS over 1,000. Like I want to know that, because like now, like especially in like the sports betting world, like I need to know, is this guy hot? Is this guy cold? Like because it depends on the order of those things. If over those 6 weeks he's having those big numbers, all right. So then maybe someone like Kevin Youkilis is down there in the clubhouse before the game, and he talked to this player who's been hot over the last 6 weeks, and he has an adjustment that he made that he can now share with us in the broadcast. Now there's a correlation. Like it wasn't just like, I sucked and I just got hot. It's like, well, no, like I do a toe tap. I never did a toe tap before, and now I like it and I'm locked in. That's interesting. There's a correlation between sucking and being red hot, and it's for a reason. Like that stuff is interesting to me.
Yeah, it's that's the one thing about being in the booth and getting to understand. But the hard part about the booth too is there's so many different fans. There's so many different fans and what they want, and it's so funny. Like you hear stuff, you're like, I don't got that in my bag. I can't pull that one out.
Like what? What do you get as far as
it's just like, because everyone wants something, right? Somebody wants to be, somebody wants a stat. Somebody wants a break. Somebody wants the aunt and uncle story. Somebody wants there's so many variations of a broadcast where you can go down, right? And I always find like it's hard too. It's like it's also too, you're going off the play-by-play guy, and it's very. I mean, you've been in the booth, and it's it's different, right? And the funny part is like some days you have this stat right in front of you, or you have something, and it never comes up where you can use it. You have it in your pocket, and you can't be like, and you're ready. It's right there in front of you. You're like, oh man, come on. And then he doesn't do it. You're like, all right, next at bat.
Yeah.
And you just never have it, right? Like you can't use that stat, right? So I always say like, I can't just throw a stat out there if it's not pertaining to anything. It's just like, or I'm just like basically just talking just to talk, or, it's fun. Like in that aspect of trying to figure out if something's going to happen in the game. And and the best part is when you've had a couple things and stats that you have and it happens and you're like, boom, that's when your broadcast is like going. You're like, whoa, this was a great broadcast. I threw in this stat. I looked really good. But half it's just prep, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, what I love to do is I love breaking down hitters. Like I love breaking down pitching. Like that's or base running. The nuances of baseball is what I love. And the stats are there. It's not like some people get really excited into the stats, right? And I've looked over all the analytics. I mean, there's so much analytics right now too, that the hard part is you start getting in the weeds sometimes when you start doing your homework. So I ask those questions because you really want to hit a certain thing for the fan base, that they're not overly saturated with things that don't really pertain to what's happening in game, and trying to figure out that good middle ground where, because some fans don't want, they just, the stats thing, they just hear it. It goes right through them, right? They don't.
It's sports radio. Like I do a lot of sports radio, and when I start, you drop FIP, and like, in the baseball community, we use FIP, interchangeably.
Like
you
Carl?
Drop a FIP, huh? Yeah.
They go, Carl? Oh, wait, he said FIP, not FIPS.
But you start saying things like that on radio, and you get people calling in on air like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we have never done something like that. Like, I'm about making contact. I'm about, all these kids, all they care about is power, like yada, yada. You ever watch Tony Gwynn? Like, that's the stuff I'm into. It's a whole different language to them.
Yeah.
And they feel insulted when you bring the other one to the table half the time.
I think that's the hard part, though. There's a new age of the very, very analytical baseball fan that has expectations of, that is what baseball is to them. But when you go dissect the Red Sox fans, the ones that consistently probably watch the game, we talk about this sometimes, they're just there just because they love the Red Sox and they just want entertainment of the game, right? I mean, probably some people even hit mute, right? I always joke around. I was like, if you don't really enjoy me, just hit mute. I mean, it's not going to hurt the ratings. It's actually going to keep the ratings the same or whatever, And you don't have to hear me. Maybe go to the radio if you don't like it. And it's totally cool. It doesn't bother me at all. And it's more of a joke, right? But I think that's the hard part of understanding and that's why I asked. Like, I think the key is we should, as color analysts, ask people what they think is good. What do they like? But then you always have to understand there's a whole other flip side of fan bases. And how do we hit that happy medium, like right in that middle point of, like you said, enough information where you get the analytical people, and people get on me like all the time about, I saw the one thing one time about batting average. And I literally said to somebody, how do you figure batting average? How do you equate batting average? It's very simple, right? It's hits and play, and at bats, not plate appearance, at bats, right? In order to get an OPS, right, on base plus slugging, you have to get hits. Right? Like, if you don't get any hits, your OPS is not going to be, you can get a lot of walks and your thing's going to be up there, but you got to drive the ball and you got to get hits. So it's funny, like I always say, batting average does matter. It matters to people, but it's like an Adam Duvall. When you dissect an Adam Duvall, he's a 230, 250 hitter. He's going to hit you 30 home runs if he's healthy, but you want that player on your team, but you also got to put a couple 280 guys and above to pair with. So I think the funny part is everyone's like kind of getting in these semantics of arguments over, it's like, no, it all matters, because as players, if you're not getting hits, your confidence stinks. You don't feel good about yourself. And it all plays into all the different analytics that are gained in the end. But I always say this, the thing that drives me nuts when I watch games is, why is a guy swinging out of his ass on a pitch that he has zero chance of getting hit on, swinging out of his ass? I was like, that's not competing in the box. That's not helping your team. You know, there's A swings, there's B swings, there's C swings, there's multiple variations of swings. And that is what contributes to guys having a better batting average overall, is the ability to know, hey, I'm just going to swing as hard as I can, hope I hit it. And sometimes we have to do that. I mean, there's some days that you're just praying that you can make contact. Like you literally feel like there's a hole in your bat. But it's the ability to get more of those players that can figure out a way to handle it, not have your A swing, and try to give yourself the best percentage chance of getting a hit.
Is that you where you kind of sit here today and you see how launch angle and somehow these different things played, and those old school ways of hitting aren't valued in the same way? I think it's why, you know, sometimes even watching a guy like Alex Verdugo was so refreshing, right? A guy who could kind of hit for average and get closer to 290, especially, you know, before the last couple of years or so. Do you kind of go mad when you're watching more of the, you know, the Adam Duvals, the CJ Crones, these guys just kind of letting it go completely out for power? And if it's a strikeout, it's a strikeout. We're just hoping to connect on 30 throughout the year.
So the funniest part about today's game is people think they invented the game today. There were guys that back in the day hit 30 home runs and hit 230, 250. People are actually making it sound like they have reinvented this whole entire sport. And I have zero idea what they're talking about on so many levels. Like every guy hit like Tony Gwynn. No, Tony Gwynn was Tony Gwynn. He was the anomaly, right? And just like Steve Balboni was a big dude that hit bombs, but like people are trying to say all these things and try to reinvent the wheel of like, oh, well, launching. The thing about launching that drives me nuts is there is zero players out there that go, all right, right now I need to have a 15-degree launch angle on this fastball in on the hands. The launch angle is a read. It's after a player performs something and it's calculated. It's not into the mindset of a hitter when he steps in the box of, I am going to hit a 20-degree launch angle and I'm going to have it at 101 exit velocity. All these are just data that are reflecting something that happened, that a player got himself into position by loading, getting his foot down, getting his bat path in the right, trajectory to hit this baseball and square it up. That in itself is hard to do consistently over and over and over and over. I always laugh because people get so locked in. And I'm going around to different ballparks. I will say this. You can tell on a scoreboard how into the analytics an organization is. It is mind-blowing to me how many times I go there. I'm like, whoa, what are all these numbers and all these? I was like, no wonder they stink. They're focusing on things that are like they're looking at, oh, I did this. You need to feel it. Like you should be able to hit a ball, right? It's like in golf. If you're supposed to hit the ball, keep your head there, and then look after, right? And you got a beautiful shot. If you pull your head, bad things happen, right? I don't know how your guys' golf game is, but it's all right. Mine's not that great either. But it's just more of it, like talking about all these things. Everyone's so locked into the analytics that are derived from a player doing something. Like you said, making that adjustment. Well, why did his analytics start changing? Why is he, driving the ball a little bit better, right? It's not because he focused on his launch angle. It's because he focused on something mechanically to get himself in a good position where he can consistently get himself into that position to drive the baseball. And sometimes it's not even about anything other than the fact that he takes pitches more now. Like he's giving up this side of the plate. He's looking for a slider. There's so many different variations of what hitters do. And I think that's one of the things that people kind of made it kind of simplistic, but it has, I just don't get in the weeds of launch angle. It's like one of those things like launch angle to me, like I just don't really look at because you can hit the ball on the ground. That's launch angle. It's just what they need. Well, somebody had a good way of putting it. I got to remember the phrasing of it, but they're like, why do they call it launch angle? It makes no sense because the launch makes it sound like everything is hit and driven, right? It really should be like batted angle.
Yeah.
Like the way the ball is batted, what is the angle off the bat or something? I forget what they said, but to me, that's what it should be called. Launch means when we hear launch, that's like, that
right.
thing's crushed.
Right. That's why I find exit velocity interesting because I think how hard you can hit the baseball or how hard you regularly hit the baseball, I think that matters. But with context, again, because then you'll see some guys that are top 5 in the league in exit velocity, and like, that's great, but like, how often does he actually put the bat on the ball? Not that often.
Oh.
Okay, so how valuable is it? So it
This was
varies.
a thing. This was the thing in the Cubs organization when I worked there, and I won't name names. They would grade the minor league players by their exit velocity. And I said, wait, so basically, oh yeah, the 6'4", Franmil Reyes, there he is. Look at Franmil Reyes, top of the leaderboard every year. Great. But would you take Luis Arraez over Franmil Reyes? I mean, are you guys going to take Arraez over Franmil Reyes?
You sure would, yeah.
Of course.
That's like, it's a no-brainer,
Yeah.
right? But Luis Arraez has the lowest average exit velocity of any player because his specialty and what he does, he has sharpened the tool and made himself the best he possibly can be as a high average guy. And his OPS is in the 860s, right? That's the way he can get to 860 in OPS. Another guy might not have the high batting average, but they can slug and they can drive the ball to the yard to get to that 860 OPS. And I think that's the hard part of baseball right now is some people are making it very simplistic of, well, no, you got to get him to this to do this. Well, if I go change him and say he needs to pull homers more, well, what if he's a guy that drove that opposite field gap really well, and now we lost that tool? So now we're negating 10 hits a year in the gap that are doubles to right center field for a couple more home runs and a lot of strikeouts and a lot of rollovers, right? I think that is where the hardship is of when people get very into the weeds of analytics without understanding how you have to make baby steps to change a hitter. It's a very slow progression that allows the hitter to get to a bigger level of where he can drive the ball out of the yard more consistently.
Sure. What do you think has been the best advice that you've been given as a broadcaster? Because obviously you have a ton of on-field experience. You have coaching experience. There's a lot of knowledge there. How has someone, or if this has happened at all, how has someone sort of tapped your brain and said, let me take this and we can paint a canvas over here with the broadcast? Like, who has kind of taken your brain and applied it to broadcasting, if anyone at all?
Yeah, that's a really good question. They kind of threw me in. I got hired. It was kind of like, here, get in the booth. Yeah. I didn't really have coaching. It was coaching as we go. OB has helped me on things. Tom Karen, TC has helped me out with a lot of that stuff. Eck, when he was there that first year, kind of gave me some pointers on things. And I think the biggest thing is you just have to be yourself. If it's scripted, somebody give me that. Just be you. Just be yourself. Speak about things that you understand. If you start going down roads that you're trying to fill, like you're trying to be somebody else, or you're trying really hard, I think people know that it's not authentic. And I've always just been very authentic in my life. Like, I am who I am, for better or worse, a lot of times. And I think it was more about that. Like, the best advice I got, and I'll reach out to Mike Monig. I ask questions like, hey, what do you think about? And that's why I'm asking you guys. Like, I think in life, we need to ask more questions than, act like we have all the answers. And trust me, in my younger years, I was way worse at that. I'll admit it. Hard-headed and stubborn is a part of my DNA and my genetics. But I think that's one thing is you're always just trying to get a little bit better. And I don't know. Like, I don't ever rewatch any games. I cringe at hearing my own voice. I hate it. Like, I absolutely hate, like, so like the Nesson in 2 or whatever comes on, I'm like, click. I'm like, I hit it right away. I just, it's one of those things where I really just try to stick to my love and passion of the game and what I know as a player and things that I learned from other players and things that I learned along the way of how to get better.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I figured that some of the guys in the booth would have given you some pointers, but it's almost like being a broadcaster that's a former player, you're almost molding the broadcaster to their strengths. Like, it's not like there's no conveyor belt of broadcasters that it just churns out the same broadcaster. It's like, okay, like Kevin Youkilis is really good at this. And to what you were mentioning earlier about you like to break down hitters, you like to look at the pitching side of it. It's like, okay, so he's really good at this. So how do we take that and deliver that to the audience in a way that's digestible? Because you don't want to when you're really, really smart in a certain area, you can overwhelm the casual viewer pretty easily. It's like an area of expertise for you. So it comes naturally when you're talking about it, but then you get 10 minutes into it and the casual viewer is like, what the fuck did he just say? So that's why I'm just curious, like how you've kind of, I don't want to say dumbed it down because that's not what you're doing. Like you're still talking about it in a very educated way. But how do you sort of take your immense knowledge and put it in front of an audience where there's going to be diehards and there's going to be some in-between fans, but then that you're also talking to, some fan that's like, I just started watching baseball this year, or I'm 10 years old and I'm a huge Red Sox fan, but like I'm learning this stuff for the first time. Like, how do you sort of condense all that?
Yeah, and I totally left out two people. Dan Aspen, who was a producer before, Amy Johnson at Ness, and they do help.
She's
mean, they're in your ear. They're help. They've helped me out a ton. Sorry, I totally forgot about the producers. It's so great in the off season where you don't have to hear them in your ear, but I love them. I talk to Amy every day and do stuff. It's like that's the hardest part. I'll tell you what. Like going back, and I'll get back to that question. That is the hardest part is when they start talking in your ear and you're on, and you like go yeah, and you're like oh god, you're saying yes to them, and you say it on air, right?
Yes.
But I think for me personally, the greatest thing that happened to me was I got to coach my kids in baseball. Coaching my kids at a young age and teaching the game of baseball, the number one thing I always said at practice was I go over all these things and go, guys, isn't baseball easy? And then they all look at me like, of course, like 7-year-olds like this. And I go, I'm just kidding, guys. It's the hardest game to understand and learn. Mm-hmm. So I think coaching my young kids and understanding how to teach all the nuances of the game at that level allow me to go get a little bit better at giving a message of baseball to a higher level, because Red Sox fans are knowledgeable. So you can't dumb it down where you're talking. It's like you're talking to kids, right? But I think coaching my kids helped me get to that middle ground level of trying to articulate it in a way where people understand. Because if I'm like, do this, do that, like high level stuff, but I also don't think that as a hitter, if you think too, what's the best way to say it? So if you're too intellectual on a lot of levels and you try to apply it into hitting, you can just start going on and on. And next thing you know, you're talking about 20 different body parts, the kinesiology of the way your body, and next thing you know, people are like, dude, like that was ridiculous. I played teammates that would say stuff, and I was like, I remember Paul Konerko. Paul Konerko was one of my favorite players, and I get traded with the White Sox, and he starts breaking down about his little toe, and I was like, oh my God, I have no idea what he's saying right now. I was like, it works, but I have no idea what he's saying. But his mind was like so entrenched in all these things. I'm like, whew. I was like, that is a lot. And one of the coaches afterwards, like he walked away and he goes, did you get all that? I'm like, no, I didn't. But
that's why baseball is great, though, is because you can speak 90 different languages and whatever works for you works for you. Like there's no exact science to it. You can have someone be like, yeah, I do this, 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 and this. And then you're sitting there, Kevin Youkilis, a World Series champion, Gold Glover, Silver Slugger, All-Star, and be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But Paul Konerko's got a statue outside of a ballpark, a major league ballpark. It's like, you've got your hardware, he's got his. I don't know what the fuck he just said, but it works for him, and what works for me works for me. That's why baseball, you mentioned it, it's one of the hardest games to learn and understand. It's one of the hardest games to play because of shit like that. It's like basketball. You take a basketball, you shoot it in the hoop. Like it's you play defense,
take and roll,
you shoot
baby.
it. Yeah, it's
take
like
and roll all day, man.
There's just so many different ways to be good at the game of baseball. It is why it's the best. It's why it's the most frustrating. It's why it drives us all crazy. But I mean, so I'll go back to 2020, I believe it was. Yeah, it was 2020. So, I mean, I can't say that I have this like keen eye for broadcasting talent, but I remember you came on, we were doing 9-hour streams in 2020 when they had the playoffs, the COVID playoffs. And Dallas and I streamed from game 1 through the final game every day. Like we were on for 12 hours and we would bring in guests or whatever. And like some of them were just like some former players, some were current players were like hanging out, whatever. It was fun. We were bullshitting. And then we had you on and I was like, why the fuck isn't this guy in a booth somewhere? Like why, like the way that you were like breaking it down was not just interesting. Like I was learning a lot, but it was also interesting. Like it was grabbing me because there are, not to name any names, there are broadcasters out there that you can absolutely put you to sleep with them trying to talk about baseball because it's not in a relatable way. It's not in a way that connects, so to speak. But you can do it in a way that connects, which I think is about the most important thing that you need to be a baseball broadcaster.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, I think the hardest part is you can't really go to the full level that you want to go. There's so many times that I have to hit my mute, and there's so many things I want to say.
Yeah,
there's things I see. OB said he goes, you see things that other people don't see.
Correct.
So we'll be in a game, and the reason the reason OB told me was there was a game. I did a prep run with Nesson, my interview. I did an interview where we're in the studio and we did a 7-inning game from COVID. And it was 2020. Yeah. So it was a 2020 game. And so OB did the game. So he knew it, but so they have the screen, they have all the stuff, the producer, it's just weird, right? Like I'm in this thing, like I got all these TVs and monitors and OB's talking and during COVID. So they got the stupid glass in between us and all this stuff. And, Devers hit a double and gets on second base and just gives a quick little like this and barely goes to his leg. And I was like, oh man, I was like, we gotta make sure to watch this here because it looks like he just grabbed his, hamstring and I guess afterwards OB hit his thing to the producer, goes, no one saw that in game. We didn't know till later that, and there's other things that happen that I think my greatest strength has always been my eyes. I've always been blessed with good vision, but it's more about just I'm always locked in. Like my intensity is more about being locked into what's happening. And I think that's my greatest gift that I was given was eyesight and being able to have that focus and intent on what's going on. But a lot of the stuff and how to break it down and what to say. I mean, there's sometimes that, the worst part is when you have a bad day, like, and when I think I have a bad day, it's like literally like I'm like the words just cannot come out, or like I'm ready to say somebody's name, and for some reason somebody else's name is in my head, and I'm like, and then I like have to like pause and go to another, there's some days it does not flow well, and you are grinding through, and then hopefully maybe a coffee can kick in and you can do. That will help you a little bit, but it's very interesting, like how you do the broadcast and what you talk about. I think every day is so unique and so fun where one day, like there's some days you're like, oh, this is going to be a really bad day. Like this is going to be a tough game. And then it's like the greatest game ever. I mean, there's so many of these like, oh, here we go. Like so-and-so's on the mound. This is going to be a long one. The next thing you know, it's like 6 innings, 1 run. Great. And then you have an ace. Ace gets on the mound, gives up 6.
Right.
And that's the beauty of baseball. You never know what you're going to get every night. I think the pitch clock has been the greatest thing that we know we're not going to get a 4-hour game, even though I did this year get the longest game again.
Which
I had 2 4-hour games. God, what game was that? It was like 350. 3 hours and 50 minutes. It was rough. And it's funny because Obi's always talking about that. Like if it goes on, Obi's always talking how long it is. And it's so funny because I'm laughing because I'm like, we did 2 4-hour games my first year in one series. And I looked over at Obi. I was like, I don't think I chose the right profession.
No.
I was like, this is not good. I was like, I don't want to do this.
I love the timing of it now. I mean, because I'm up doing the West Coast games now, and I can actually get in bed around like midnight. Before it's like 1:30, and I'm lucky now where like I'm just kind of like live tweeting the West Coast games, whereas in 2020 and 2021 we were doing that show Morning Wood, so we would have to finish the slate and then set up the camera, and then I would write the script, and then I would shoot the show, and then have to send it over. So I mean, best case scenario, I'm going to bed at 2:30 every single night. But now it's like, all right, midnight, good, get in bed, figure it out. Like, because now it's like, all right, we by the time the West Coast games kick in, you can kind of pick and choose. Like, all right, there's 3-4 games on. It's about midnight. This game's a blowout. These two teams don't matter, and then you end up watching the Dodgers and going to sleep. Like that's just like the new routine. It's like, all right, I'll watch the Dodgers, or I'll watch the Padres. You will fall asleep to a little Donnie O on the West Coast.
And mud.
Yes. Is it kind of a catch-22 for you where you're getting to learn in, I guess, a low pressure situation because the Red Sox have been in last place the last 2 years? Or are you yearning for like a pennant race where it's like, all right, all like the ratings have now quadrupled, the action is packed? Like how has that dynamic been where you do get to learn and get your reps in under these circumstances, but I'm sure like you'd rather cut your teeth during a fun season?
I hate losing.
Yeah,
I just can't stand losing. I'm not even playing. I have no say in the game. That's actually a dumb statement to say. I do have a say in the game.
You do have a say.
When you can't play, right? It's like there's nothing worse than watching bad baseball. Like it is aggravating to sit there and watch losing baseball. It is so hard to watch losing. I'm too competitive in that realm that, and this is what, and going back to a little bit, the funniest thing is when somebody calls you a homer, right? Somebody I've heard, I don't know, there's some guy, I don't know, the Felger Maz, whatever. Like there's some dude that it's like, you're a homer. I'm like, I get paid by the Red Sox.
All right.
I fly with these guys.
And fans want that.
I said, do you really want me to bury a dude? Like, that's what you want. But 99%, or I don't even know, it's 90%. I don't even know what the percentages are. 80%. Let's say 80% of fans don't really want you to sit there and just bury people. And it's not my personality to sit there because I never want to lose sight of how hard the game was. I struck out. I made errors. I made base running mistakes. I did all that. Maybe I didn't make as many base running mistakes as others because I took pride in it and it was a thing I loved to do. But that doesn't give me the right to just absolutely bury some dude, right, on air. And I think that's one of the hardest parts of becoming a broadcaster is walking that fine line of, and this is what I try to do. If I'm a coach and that base runner comes off, am I going to sit there and go, hey, that was the stupidest thing I've ever seen? Because the player's going to go, no shit. Like, I know it's stupid. Like, I'm going to be like, hey, listen, what'd you see there? We're going to talk through it. But like, for me, if we're going to say like, hey, on that play, you got to read it, right? The right fielder, he's going to his right. He's left-handed. So he's got to spin to throw to third base, okay? You got to take that extra base, right? Now, if you go into the other side, he's in a good position to throw. You had it wrong. On this side, yes, we're going to go all day first to third. On this side, we're not. And I think in the broadcast, if you say it like that, you're acting like a coach and telling the viewers as a coach versus belittling the players. And I think that's one of the things, too, that is a hard thing sometimes with the losing is there's so many times I have to, if you ever watch me up there, I'm like, dude, Like, it drives me nuts. I hit the mute button. I like go back in my chair. I throw my head back. Like, gosh. Like,
I have so many videos sitting behind Dallas in the A's booth, and you can imagine how awful that must be to call those games. Yeah. So
that's rough. But like, I think that's one of the things you look at, and you just kind of, I just always want to make sure that I never lose sight of how hard the game is, because it gets easier. It's so easy when you're watching on TV. Like, why didn't you swing at that? And you're like, oh, I probably wouldn't have swung at that one either. You know, like you just have to take your ego out of it. And you really, and I think that's the hard part for, you know, some guys, that the farther they get away from playing, they forget how hard the game was.
Sure. So you've never, well, I don't want to say never, because it's bound to happen at some point. Have you yet to have your first run-in with a player where a player's like, why the fuck did you say that on the broadcast?
I haven't yet. I don't know. I mean, somebody probably does. I mean, I think that's also the thing, too, is the reason why somebody doesn't like you on a broadcast most likely is your personalities don't align. You know, I think that's probably one of the number one things and that's what I say is, listen, that's me. And there's a lot of people in this world that would never get along with me, and vice versa. Right. I mean, as much as we want, you know, world peace and happiness and all that, it's like, it ain't going to happen. Right. Like you don't click with people. Right.
Right.
So you can't control that. Right. And I think for me, there might be a player that might be annoyed by me. But the greatest thing I had last year was Josh Winkowski's grandmother come up to the booth and was so excited to me. Like, it's like, thank you so much for saying, you know, and then it was Durant, who is it? Durant's agent that came up to me and was like, oh, thank you. You know, when you get those, right?
Yep.
You know, when you get all those of like, hey, thank you, you know, and I'm like, I'm not trying to like, you know, it's like, I'm going to call it how it is. Like, you know, Jaron Duran, like, it's so fun to watch him get out of the box. Like, that hustle and intensity is, I can relate to that. I love that.
Yeah.
But also there's times where I've seen certain players that don't run hard or don't do that. And I can literally bury them, but it's a long season. You got to pick and choose your spot. If it's happening once, twice, 3, 4 times, now we can talk about it.
Sure.
Because you can't negate it. You can't hide it, because the Red Sox fan base is very smart too. And they'll go, you never say anything bad about the players. And I've heard that one too. Oh, you don't say anything bad. I'm like, I do. You know, I just say it in a coachable way versus, you know,
anyone can say
radio.
You blow.
Yeah. You're not like, you're not going to be like, what an idiot for making that play. You're going to say, I bet he wish he did that differently.
You know, the play that I can throw out here that we all remember is the Reese McGuire play on the base running.
Yeah. That was the game. So I missed that call because I was at the game. Tyler was at the so every game that Tyler went to was a point where the season took a demonstrative turn in the negative direction.
I was at those 2 games.
He was
at the 2 games I went to.
And he was at the Reese McGuire game. So I don't remember the call because I was there. Tyler was there ruining the season. So
I literally was going, I went, no. I saw it. And I was like, no. And I don't know what OB was saying. I was like, no. And that's also the hard part for like me is, I mean, it just comes out sometimes. Like, you know, like send them. Like, you know, it's like, you'll hear it on the broadcast probably now. I don't know if you notice it, but I'll be like, send them. Like, I just can't help myself. I grew up listening to 2 of the greatest radio broadcasters of all time, and Marty Brennaman and Joe Nuxall, like Hall of Famers. And Joe Nuxall was like talk about a homer. He would go nuts in the background. And I grew up on that. And so for me, a little bit of like what I know from my childhood kind of comes out sometimes. So I'm like, get up, ball. Like, you'll hear it. And it's literally because that's how I was raised. Like, I heard so many calls from Joe Nuxall in the background over Marty Brennaman, you know, and sometimes I got to work on that too, because I might go over the call. A couple times
I have the call. I have the call right here. If you'd like to hear it.
Oh no! I told you I hate
the 1-0. Swinging a high fly ball, deep left center, way back to the wall, and leaping up to make the catch. Aguiro's got the bag in, rounded, the throw into second, and that wins the ball game for Toronto. They win it as as he thought it was going off the wall.
Wow.
Lines up a double play.
Got to stay halfway on this ball. He's celebrating.
He thinks it's out.
Oh, no. Yeah, you got to stay halfway. If it hits off that wall, you're scoring. Tie ball game.
Kiermaier with the catch, and then the throw into second to double off. McGuire. Oh, my. What a crushing way to lose.
No.
Oh no.
Fabulous, too, was telling
Yeah.
Urias
like
to
Urias
go.
Yep.
But see, that's accountability. It's calling out Reese. It's calling out Febulous for being a third and maybe not, transferring signals as clearly as he should have. You are hitting on both. It's just you're saying it like your coach would if you were on the field with them. Like, you can't do this because of this.
Yeah, the Fabulous one too, and that was the fun. OB didn't see that with Carlos too, and I saw it. I saw it so I looked and then I saw Carlos and I was like, oh no, here we go. Like, this is bad. This is this is the worst scenario you could have. The horrible base running at second, thinking the ball's going to hit the wall, celebrating, and then the third base coach is celebrating, and I'm like, this. I was like, because I get frustrated because I feel base running is the number one thing that has gotten worse. Right? Guys are eating healthier. Guys are bigger, faster, stronger. Everything you hear decade after decade. Base running and throwing to bases are two things that have gotten worse in baseball. And it's because of youth baseball and the state of youth baseball that doesn't care about coaching. They care about getting guys on teams to play a weekend here. These guys are going to 3 different teams and they're getting paid. These high school kids are like getting paid to play and do stuff for these huge travel ball teams, and they're really not being coached well. And so they come into pro ball, and everything's about reps, right? You got to have enough reps, and it's just too late sometimes. For some of these guys, they have to keep getting more reps, and I think that's one of the fundamentals that has gone by the wayside is base running. And I think Alex Cora was the one that mentioned it too one time. This year, said base running is the worst he's ever seen it.
Yeah, especially here. We had Brock Holt on for the Friendsgiving episode, and he dropped a little nugget in there about how Rossi was going to ask him to be a coach with the Cubs, and I said maybe that's why he got fired. For you, Kevin Youkilis, hitting coach with Team Israel, broadcaster for the Boston Red Sox. I'm assuming at some point you have turned down a coaching job in the big leagues. Like, I feel like that's just a no-brainer that would have been on the table at some point. No,
I have not turned down any gig.
Brock Holt got asked to be a coach before you. That's crazy.
So this is one of my it's been a little you just literally like hit like right in the jugular, just right there. It's been it's been a hard path. I went out for the and it's good though. Like,
but you would do it. You would go back on the road and do 162 with the team.
Yeah, well, hold on. Yeah, I'll get to that one.
Right. I mean, we got kids. We got wife. Yeah.
Well, my wife was, she's good with it, but
okay.
I got a great wife that's independent, loves the whole thing with sports and all that. But I went out for the bench coach job in Anaheim with Joe Madden and didn't get that gig. Billy Epler was the general manager. Mike Gallego was already there as a third base coach, and they gave it to Gallego over me. Totally cool. Mike Gallego been in the game a lot longer, way more knowledge than me as a coach. So you go, okay, cool experience. Got to sit down and learn all that. And then Tito called me before my broadcasting gig. So 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Tito asked me to interview for the hitting coach job with the Cleveland Guardians. And Tito was like, hey, listen, it's coming to an end. I'm having a hard time relating to some of the people. He goes, I've always thought you're going to be a great hitting coach someday if you want to do it. And then I went through the interview process, thought it was going to be great, yada, yada, yada. And they told me that, so Victor Rodriguez is the assistant hitting coach. Victor Rodriguez was my hitting coach in the minor leagues with the Red Sox. One of the greatest human beings. Go check out his minor league stats too, by the way. He was stuck behind Cal Ripken. Like back in the day, you get stuck,
couldn't even get a fucking day.
Exactly. Not one.
Not one.
So he was stuck in the minor leagues. So Victor I knew well. So I go through the and do all the interview, yada, yada, yada. And I remember the one question they asked me was, how can we get these guys to hit more home runs? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, that's a weird question. How am I going to tell these guys to hit more home runs in an interview?
Yeah.
So I just was like, well, we got to teach them how to catch the ball out more in front, better pitch selection. Yeah. But I thought it was interesting. And then my wife actually asked the best question. She goes, did they even ask you to break down like a hitter, like one of their hitters, and see what you see wrong? I was like, that's genius. Like, how is that not part of the interview process?
Right.
Wouldn't you want to see somebody just watch a video real quick and go, hey, I think this is what we could work on here, this. And if they know that to be true, they go, okay, he knows what he's talking about, right? The reason I get it, because they couldn't handle two guys that didn't fully understand all the analytics. And that was the answer I got back. Now, the funny part about that was and Chris Valleca, who I love, like we worked together with the Cubs, got the job, great guy, awesome, deserving. So like 2 times people got gigs that I didn't get, totally cool with it, right? But I thought it was interesting too, because I was a finance major in college, and I'm like, I find it interesting when us old school, which is not really, I don't think it's old school, is, I got my little guy here.
Hey-o.
Oh, one sec, bud.
Okay.
I got you, bud. That's my youngest little stud.
Is it a bedtime story?
He wants food, man.
Oh,
He's
okay.
a Youkilis. He wants food.
Yeah.
So
I'm on the same page.
yeah. So basically, going back to the it was the analytical break. And I think that's one of the hardships is you have to know all the analytics, and I have a hard time with that because the analytical team is the one that should be teaching me everything that they know from the data and allow me to work alongside them with things that I know, and cohesively as a unit, we brand together and get a good attack. Like, how are we going to attack? How are we going to do it? But to say you have to know all these things, well, what if that person doesn't know the other side of it, how to talk to a player at the right time? Because feel is the biggest thing. If you go to a hitter and go to him and say, hey, listen, your hands are too high. We got to move them down. The hitter's going to be like, oh, literally, if I move my hands down that much, it is the weirdest feeling as a hitter. It feels like that much. It's not like the littlest adjustments you make as a hitter are so hard because the feel, yeah, you can show me all the data, you can show me all that stuff, but we got to get to the point where this uncomfortableness makes that person feel like they're going to make those strides that they're going to have, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of the things that I got out of that interview. And to spin it back, I don't think I can coach right now because my daughter's graduating this year, going to college. I have a 3rd and 5th grade. And it's funny that you guys are saying this because OB is always like, somebody's going to call you and they're going to ask you to manage someday. And I'm like, I haven't got a phone call yet. So it's not happening anytime soon. But I don't know. I think part of me, I don't know where my path goes. I'm broadcasting for now. I'm a kind of guy that lives in the moment. I don't think too far down the road. I don't have these grand visions of I got to manage or I got to coach or do all that. I think maybe my best fit down the road might be helping out at front office to start, and then deciding if I want to get back in and my kids are a little bit older, if managing or bench coaching to me, I feel like jumping right into being the manager is never a good situation. Like when you go from the booth to that, I'm not a big believer in it. And if somebody's going to hand me that job and ask me to do it, my bench coach is going to be about 20 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And is going to be just an old dude that has seen years and years of the craziest things in baseball. Because knowledge in the game, and we're seeing it now, we're seeing the shift on. And it's a beautiful shift we're seeing in baseball of the wise older, like guys that have been baseball dudes becoming the coaching staff. We can have all the front office gigs and all that stuff that are very, Ivy League analytical mindsets, but the connectivity between the players and coaches and the relatability is a really big deal to players. And I think that is the shift that is going to help out a lot in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting to even see the old school guys coming back as managers. Like Boch just was like, hey, I'm coming out of retirement, going to win a World Series real quick if you guys don't mind. Dusty coming back with Houston winning one. So yeah, like there's definitely a ton of value in that. I mean, the guy that you were describing really was like Aaron Boone. Like Aaron Boone went from the broadcast booth to managing the New York Yankees, and he's still there. Rossi, yeah. But was he doing media? What was he doing before they just
ESPN?
He was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have not gone to ESPN for baseball coverage outside of Jeffrey Passan in quite some time. Once MLB Network became a thing, I was just like, sorry, ESPN. Like they talk about ESPN for like 20 minutes a week. It's crazy. But yeah, I think it's very interesting when you do talk to some of those guys like Boone, AC, the stuff that they learned on the media side. Like it's so you're talking about like, oh, like I'd love to be in a dugout and have like this older bench coach. But I mean, you got to sit next to Dennis Eckersley, like you're picking the brains of some of the dudes that have been around the block. And I think Alex has talked about it a little bit, being like, you just you're sitting in a room with these other baseball minds, and then they just start talking about baseball out loud, and it opens your mind to a perspective that maybe you weren't privy to before, or maybe as a viewpoint that you just never considered before. Have you had that experience? I mean, like, I know that you said like Eck has given you some pointers, but it was more so like broadcasting pointers. Have you talked to anyone in your broadcasting days so far where they've kind of changed your baseball viewing perspective?
Well, I think going down and talking to the coaches, I think that's one of the big ones, right? So like Brandon Hyde's I worked with him in Chicago a little bit, and go talk to every time I had the chance, go see Hyder and stuff. And he jokes around too. He's like, "Hey, when you're ready to go," he's like, "Call me if you want to come coach." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know about Baltimore."
Yeah.
No offense, but I don't know if the wife's going to want to move to Baltimore. The kid, but I love talking to a lot of the coaches. A lot of the guy, the Terry Franconas, every time I saw Tito, or it was AJ Hinch was great to see and talk to him. And when I got to that NBC Peacock, because some of the guys you played against and now they're in different roles, right? So like AC, but like Veritek, I always love sitting down and talking to Jason. Like, Tex one that we've had so many great talks along the way. And then, unfortunately, the last time we saw each other was at Wake's, funeral, talking there. And when Tech gets going, Tech, there's two sides of Tech, right? So it's like the one is like very quiet, very, very calm. And then the fun one when we're having a couple, drinks, a little wine or something like that. And Tech comes out and it's like, it is just endless baseball talk.
Yes.
And it's beautiful.
Yes.
And he gave me a lot of pointers and things and said some stuff to me too about, if you're going to get back into coaching or do all that, this is what it looks like, and how the game's changed and how you have to get, and personalities have changed too. Generationally, it's just different, but you can sit there and knock it, or you can sit there and embrace it and figure out a path of how you're going to connect. If you really want to coach, or you want to be in that position where you're working with, I guess it's 18 to, mid 30s. I mean, to make it to 40 now in baseball, there's only a couple of those guys. So you have to connect to that generation. You have to connect to them in ways that they want you to be a part of their life and trust you. And I think that's one thing where you just get the get off my lawn type thing. And, this is, it's okay to say this is how we did it back in the day, but you have to relate to the individual currently and their mindset, right? It's like, I think that's one of the things that to be a good, and that's why I think coaching a lot of times is not always about the baseball side of things. It's the ability to understand a player's background. What's their home life growing up? Do they come from a divorced family? Do they come from, a broken home? All the little things on how they got to where they are that whole path you need to really learn and understand, because that's how you get in the mindset of the player in order to make them the best baseball player. A lot of times we focus so much on the data analytics of this, the swings, and all that other stuff. At the end of the day, you got to gain the trust of the player, and you have to learn them, speak to them. One person I'm going to be really hard on because that's going to motivate them. The next person, you got to baby him a little bit, and you got to be okay with that. And I think that's the separator between great coaches and average coaches.
I needed to be babied. I know when I was coming up, I was one of those guys that I'm sensitive. I was a little sensitive, and I needed to be told that I was, the coach's favorite. You need to feed your family, Kevin Youkilis. But before we let you go, Tyler, I wanted to also give Jake a chance to ask a question. Jake always Jake's
been talking. It's been ridiculous. How much
he never shuts up. Like he never shuts up. Jake. Yeah. Tyler, did you have anything that you wanted to close with?
Yeah, I did have one I had to ask. We do a lot of 2012 Red Sox talk on this podcast. I don't know if it's trauma. I don't know what it is.
It's PTSD. It is.
That's really what it is. And when we do have the conversation, we had it with TC last week. We were talking about you and Bobby Valentine, situation where Dustin Pedroia steps up for you and kind of speaks on your behalf. How do you look at that era with Bobby Valentine, how things ended here in Boston? Is it hard to kind of look back on from your perspective, or do you kind of just charge it to the game?
2012 was probably one of the hardest years of my life in baseball, by far. There was a lot of things going on in my life. It was just unfortunate. It's one of those years, you can sit here and, I always say, no matter what you do in life, you got to let it go. They asked me, they try to ask me on NBC Sports to go do this whole thing on the Bobby Valentine thing. And I was like, nah, I'm good. Nothing good comes out of me speaking on anything or down or talking bad about somebody. Bobby's got to do his own thing. And, and he if he wants to say negative things about me or things like that, so be it. It just was an unfortunate thing. I will say that the hardest thing for me was I didn't think the organization had my back. And after all that I did for the team, I think that was the hardest thing. But I was bitter. I was really bitter about how I felt the organization didn't stand up for me. But over time, what I learned was that was one of the greatest send-offs that you could possibly have in sports. It just didn't go the way I thought it would. But we don't get to write our script. This isn't Hollywood. Not everyone gets the Derek Jeter moment where you get the three, like the way that was scripted out was beautiful. That doesn't happen. So you got to grow. You got to learn from it. You got to, water under the bridge, move on, and don't burn any bridges. And I won't burn any bridges. I'll just say, the fact is this, that it was a leadership issue that started in spring training, and it just went out of control. And unfortunately, it didn't go the way that anyone would like it. But I let go of my anger, and I got to a point where I realized how special that day was when I got sent off by the fans of Boston. It didn't matter who was managing or anything like that. It was one of the greater send-offs by the fans. And at the end of the day, that is the reason I'm broadcasting now is because I got over it.
Yeah. If I'm remembering this correctly, I know you hit a triple and got removed from the game, and you blew the kisses, and then was it this one where Bobby told you to go up for a curtain call? Because was that you? Because there was one part where Bobby Valentine.
No, it was.
Okay, so that ruined it for me. Like, get the fuck out of here! Like you're not part of this moment. Like, stop it! Like because now, like I can't tell you the last time that I saw that video, but I mean, obviously, I was a big fan. I wasn't at your last game, but I know I made it a point to come to your return. I was at that game for that standing ovation, but I remember you coming off the field and you're having your moment with the fans. And then Bobby is standing on the top step of the dugout and like he just like looks like this little midget, and he like stands up straight and he just points like, "Get out there, Kevin!" And they want to stay. It's like, buddy, he was gonna come out anyway. Like, get up. Like, this is not about you. Like, I don't even want to remember that you were part of this moment. Like, you're the reason why this happened in the first place. Get the fuck out of the frame. Like that part pissed me off. I remember that.
Well, you weren't the only one. There was a lot of teammates that were not happy about that. So
Yeah.
But I think it was. I don't know who like. It was kind of a blackout moment, like, you know, all the stuff, and you know, you don't know what to do and all that stuff. But you know, it was that that moment and what you saw and what you remember basically is everything about the character of the individual, and that's what it was. It was always that. Yeah. But you know, you gotta know that when you go back to wearing mustaches and, you know, coming into it is what it is. And, you know, the Red Sox learned the hard way. They made a bad hire because it's about the players. You know, if you think it's about you, you know, show me a good manager and you'll see a ton of great players.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't care what manager. If you put Bochy on the Oakland A's next year, the Oakland A's still stink.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. They might be a little bit better. They might feel a little bit better, but talent is a big deal.
Sure is. The vibes might be better, but they're still the Oakland A's.
Correct.
They're still the 112 lost Oakland A's. Jake, do you have a question for Kevin Youkilis?
Yeah, you've obviously been a legend in Boston for like 20 years, so I'm sure every time you show up to Fenway Park, fans are like, holy shit, Kevin Youkilis, like screaming Youk at you and stuff. So my question is, this year, was it weird that people stopped recognizing you less as a former MLB player and more as a current member of the Klark Ketchup Series MVP panel?
That's true. That is true. I was going to ask that as well.
That's a really good question. Yeah. Jake waited all this time.
Yeah. Best question.
Yes. It's definitely weird. You know, that's how they remember me now. But hey, listen, you're washed up. They don't remember anything about you. They're on to the next sexy player, you know?
Right.
There's a lot of sexy ball players out there that they care about now.
Right.
You know, just I go stand in the corner, go do your thing.
Yeah. Do you feel
and they
pressure?
send me up to my booth. Go in your little box and then let Carabas come up there and give up about 5 runs.
Yeah, at least 2 homers. wild pitch to the backstop.
But I gave you confidence to get back in that booth. You did. You shut it down.
100%.
I told you your next one, you're going to shut it down.
I feel like next year is my year. I feel like next year is the year where it's kind of like a reverse jinx, where every time I go in there, it's just absolute goose eggs. That's how I personally feel. That's the attitude that you have to have after a bad year. Well, back-to-back bad years coming in.
Well, you do come in a little nervous and negative, and I try to come and give you the woosah.
Yes,
you got this. It's going to be your inning. Let's go.
It was your positivity that made me feel better, because I know after a couple bad outings that Nesson was going to play it up. They were like, we gotta, you're awful. Like, we have to lean into the fact that you're awful. And I was like, okay, whatever's best for business. And then, you know, you take that and you just want to go out there and have a good outing. And I will say, the game, it was the only game the entire year that I was in the booth that the Red Sox didn't give up any runs. I don't know if you remember this. The following inning, I believe it was either Youk or Cutter, but it was against the Blue Jays. The next inning after I left the booth, 6 spot. So
it was.
I almost caught that. That would have been awful. 6. I would have left. Like, at some point, you just have to pull the plug on yourself. Like, you have to, like, you're not looking at the dugout being like, hey, Skip, like, you coming out here or what? Like, you're just walking back to the dugout even without Skip. So
yeah, you have 2 options. You can either walk out of the booth in shame, or you can just get over it and realize it's not about you, Jared. Jesus.
I would love people to come to that determination next year. If my bad luck continues, I would love for people to understand that it's not my fault.
Yeah, but then Twitter wouldn't be fun.
I know.
Like,
well, the troll is the best part.
Followers.
Yeah, Twitter.
They troll the heck out of you.
Yeah, it's bad. That's why I don't look. If I have a bad outing, I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to put my phone down, airplane mode, don't give a shit. Going to go eat pizza.
It's going through your head nonstop. Get out of here. Nope. Traumatized.
Nope, I don't look. I don't look at that stuff. If I have
As
a bad
someone
outing,
who texts Jared immediately after he leaves the Nesson booth, I could speak to a very different situation.
I don't know. I mean, I'll look at my text message because it's like, oh, I got a text from T-Dog here. Going to answer that. He's one of my great friends, podcast co-host. Want to make sure that, he feels like he's getting the attention that he deserves. But outside of that,
a lot of love here. A lot of love on here. I love it.
Team
Everybody
unity.
love
Family.
it.
Team unity.
I love it.
Kevin Youkilis, you've been very generous with your time. I don't know how this keeps happening. So we are, I think the only one, or no, there's two left. Next week, Jemai, the week after, Will Middlebrooks. We've gone through the entire Clark's Ketchup Series MVP voting panel since the start of the offseason with our guests. And usually if we have a guest on, I mean, we don't really have guests on during the year because they're busy calling the games or playing in the games. So usually it's like 40 minutes max, and I feel bad asking for more than a half an hour. Everyone has gone at least an hour and a half to 2 hours.
You broke the record. This is the longest so far we've had of any guest.
But TC last week was like over 2 hours.
I think we did 2:15 with TC before ads. I don't know what it ultimately came out to. Youk at 2:23. This is the longest episode of the offseason.
They just keep progressively getting longer. Like I think Will Fleming did an hour and a half, and I was like, this is a long one. And then Youk just comes in, just bang, 225 up your ass. Very impressive.
You ain't first, you're last.
Kevin Youkilis, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. Have a great off season. Keep, seriously, every day, just keep throwing out all these crazy rumors and all that. I'll try to follow you both.
Done deal.
Jake, next time, just talk a little bit less, please.
Yeah, I got you, Youk. That's my bad.
Buenas noches, amigos.